size matters not. Look at me. Judge me by my size, do you? And where you should not. For my ally is the Force. And a powerful ally it is. Life creates it. Makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. You must feel the Force around you. Here, between you, me, the tree, the rock, everywhere. Yes, even between the land and the ship.
Welcome, Girlskis, to the Frugal Force. This is episode 12, and tonight we are hitting flour, everybody's favorite time. So, as always, we'll go around the panel and hear how everybody's week's going. And start with you, Spartan Grown.
Hello, everybody. I'm Spartan Grown. My week is going wonderful. Still having to work. Things that's changed for me is we're complying with the suggestions, and we're wearing masks now. As you can see, this red mark across my nose, that's from wearing a mask for 8 hours. But yeah, so we're doing everything we can to stay healthy. Actually, I'm getting days off now, so I'm excited about that. I've got some days off ahead of me, so I'll probably be podcasting as much as possible because that's my favorite thing to do, hanging out with my buds. Other than that, I've actually shout out to Bad Buddy Nutrients. I'm wearing their shirt today, and I'm actually right now brewing one of their I don't know if you've seen this product, the Bad Bunny Brew. They got little tea bags with their fertilizer already in it, and I'm actually brewing one of those up because I hadn't watered yet, and I saw we were taping, so I said, fuck it, let's start brewing one of these teas. So we'll see how the plants like that. They'll get a little special treat tonight. I won that from I'm sure that's a product that they sell too, because I saw them advertising it. But I won that when I won the light and everything else on that Pheno Hunt challenge. Shout out 2020. And what was Great Lakes Genetics was the people who had the seeds.
Those shirts are sweet. And on the back, right where your ass is, it says Dirty Bunny Brew or hashtag Dirty Bunny or something like that.
I'll see if I can get a shot for you guys.
Oh, we're getting a booty shot. There we go. Dirty Bunny Brew.
That's sweet.
They are cool.
Fucking love that shirt in black, man. It's my color. It's not. It's my two favorite. I love green. They got green and black. I mean, come on.
Smiley, how's the crystals treating you this week?
Good, man. It's been a little busy week. I got finishing off some of the transplanting for the grow off too. So yeah, it's kind of been a blur up until now. Actually, it's been one thing to the next, but it's all right, man. I know I'm alive. Still feeling good. I'm staying safe, staying away from everybody. Thankful I don't have to wear a mask all day and have a mark on my nose. And I appreciate the people that do that for us all. So.
And I would say the Dark Lord, but honestly, I was thinking about it like the other night, listening to Red, and the more and more I learned about Red, it's like I don't want to call you a Dark Lord no more. I want to say you're a great Jedi, man, because you follow both ways. You really do. So we might have to give you a different title now. But how you doing?
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, same thing I do, buddy. We're the same.
Like to grow both ways. I'm good, man. I'm good. Cheers, everybody. Cheers, cannabis community. Hey, man, I like to live or think that try to live an organic type of lifestyle. I try to recycle. I try to do the 3 R's, the 4 R's, reduce, reuse, recycle, and regenerate as much as I can. I just so happen to indoors be a synthetic and salt-based grower, but that's just because it's a frugal type of a growing thing that I do. And I don't oppose doing organics indoors. I just think that with there already being like a disconnect, being a concrete floor, HID lighting or even LED lighting, I mean, the lack of the sun thereof, I might as well just go full synthetic and just do the best I can to just try to pump out good medicine as I can. And then leave, you know, Mother Nature to the easy work outside and do things permaculturally, you know. Yeah. Cheers, cannabis community. I'm Red Setter Farm. Find me on Instagram. Peace, everyone. Frugal Force.
So tonight we're gonna hit flower, and I figure we'll break it down in like a nice, easy step by step. That way, people that are doing this for the first time, like a couple people in the grow off, they can kind of follow this. So I want to start with week 1 and see what everybody does during week 1 of flower. Anybody want to take that?
Sure, I'll go. My first week of flower, I'm usually, so like day 1, I'll move them into flower, and then I put them right into the scrog. Day 1 or 2, if I'm busy, but I try to get them into the scrog right away. Usually the plants are taller than my scrog anyway, so I'm kind of like bending and tucking to get them in there. So it works out. That's the way it fills up the scrog for me. And then I usually give them that time to kind of recover, and then I'll go through and lollipop or take off the lower parts that I know aren't going to hit the top canopy. And I'll do that within the first week as well. So, but I do give them kind of a few days there to just settle and see what tops kind of turn up and which ones are going to do what they want to do. And then it's easier to lollipop and chop. You can kind of see which ones aren't going to make it for you. You know what I mean?
So that's cool, because I do almost exactly the same thing as what Smiley said. The only additional thing that I'll do is, and this is all depending on a lot of things, like always, right? But you know, depending on the strain and depending on when last I gave any nutrition to my plants, and depending on how big the plant is and how big the pot is, depending on all those things, I'll usually do some sort of a top dress right there on that first week too. And that top dress is either, it's going to have some nitrogen in it, and it's going to have, it's usually like an all-in-one. I've got Morgan Composting, and people that do dairy do. They have like a granular organic top dress that actually can feed for up to 2 weeks. So, and it has calcium in it, which I like, especially in flower, and because you're building. And if you're building, you want to have that calcium. Calcium's in like everything when the plant builds. So, that's when I do that top dress, usually week 1. And I may add something additional depending on all those things I mentioned before, you know, all those factors. You know, basically I'm just trying to figure out, is the plant going to need nutrition right now or not? I want to make sure that it's not wanting for anything, because this is when it's going to start uptaking a lot of nutrition as it builds. In that stretch, it's almost like a super veg. So, or that's how I look at it. So, in that same top dress, there's the biggest number is the nitrogen number. It's a 7. I think it's like a 764 or something like that, maybe. But there's also like a 4 in calcium. So I really like that product.
Which one is that?
Hold on one moment. No, I'll get it for you I like just to be accurate. It's easier that way.
No, and that's important too, because I'll just speak from experience on this. Spartan might have hit on it because I had talked to him, but I wasn't top dressing. So like I built the soil and I'm just going to run water only. And it was about the second or third cycle. And all of a sudden, you know, they started to hit where they were finishing their stretch, not quite setting their the buds on yet, but they just turned straight yellow on me. So that was kind of an indicator that they were running out of some nitrogen. And, you know, I think that's a great point that he brought up. You want to have a plan of what you want to do for a top dress. So just want to throw one rule of thumb I like to keep, but I try to keep them under a half cup, and I'm on a number 10 smart pot. So like, that's one thing I noticed, like a lot of the recipes are like pour 2 cups on, and every time I see that, I'm like, holy shit, like that's just a lot, dude. It's like a ½ inch on the top of a number 10 for sure.
Okay, so I take that to an extreme a little bit. I use even less. So first, I want to answer your question and actually tell you the real numbers, because my numbers were way off. Huh? Imagine that. It was a 7.65 and then 5% calcium also.
That's badass.
Yeah, and it's called Healthy Garden.
That's cool.
But like you said, it like recommends like a cup or something. And you know, I'm in a 1.5. What something just popped up and distracted me. I'm in a 1.5 cubic foot planter, and for that, you know, according to that, it'd be cups of that every 2 weeks. Instead, I'm using 1 to 2 tablespoons, and I do that every week from week 1, week 2, and then I'm looking at the plant, and I usually after week 2 don't add any more of that because I don't want nitrogen too late in my flower. But if there's showing any signs of even the underneath yellowing, then I'll go ahead into week 3, give it 1 more dose of that, and then after that I switch to the that compost tea stuff I showed you guys last episode, and I'll do that for 1 to 2 weeks, depending again on how the plant's looking, and I always err on using less, but it's always at least 1 tablespoon when I'm doing these top dressers, which is a tiny amount when it comes to how much volume I'm having, but I don't really want to push a whole lot into them, just enough to get that response to where I really get a big bulk on my flower sets. But after week 4 to 5, I mean 5, I don't think I would even feed past week 5. Maybe week 4 would probably be the last time I would do a top dress. Week 5 at the absolute latest if I had a really long flowering plant, you know what I mean? That's about it. For the same plant training, same trimming that you were talking about. I don't do a leaf strip, but I do take the bottoms off. I don't leaf strip at week 1 or anything like that. If I was going to strip anything, it'd be like maybe day 21 at the earliest, actually day 21. Or if I was going to strip past day 21, I like to do 42. I kind of like the mango style. I like the GMO style, okay, but I don't strip it like that anymore. I think that works great in synthetics, just not organics. So I think I covered everything. I'm high.
I just wanted to piggyback on what Smiley was talking about with the yellowing after so many runs or whatever. And that's something I want those out there doing the minimalist build of the Frugal Force to watch out for, is once you get about 4 runs in, maybe 5, it'll seem like you're starting to run out of gas, I've noticed. And that's when you want to start bringing in like some heavy hitters to replace like all that potassium and phosphorus, like all your guanos and stuff that come standard inside the Coco Loco. Those do help in the size and the growth of your plants, and that stuff will be depleted by then. So just keep an eye out on that if you're just running the minimalist build, you guys. And as far as week 1, depending on the structure, I will go in there and I'll strip. I also will use it as a good time to take clones because I don't take mothers if I need any clones. And if I need to do a last-minute spray of sulfur or soap nuts, I'll also put that in within the first week. If I'm feeling frisky, I will throw the net up the first week, but I normally wait for it to stretch a little bit to see what it's going to do.
That's a really good point about the IPM. That's something that's a really good time to do too. I'll IPM basically. I can get away with it week 1, week 2, if it's in the corner where I don't have to worry about overspray, because I'm in a situation where I have flowers in, flowering plants in other stages. So if I have anything in there that's late stage, I can't spray anything in there. But week 1 usually. The other plants are about week 4, and so I could, strategically spray the week 1 plants if they're in the one corner. But usually, if you can spray them as they go in, it's so much easier for me in my situation anyway. If I guess they're in their own flower room, it's not a big deal. But if you got perpetual going, heck yeah, spray them up to the last fucking moment, which would be day 1 of flower. Spray them before they go in the flower room.
How about you, Red? What do you do the first week?
Well, indoor in hydroponic, Jax is same mixture between veg and bloom, so I don't change any of my recipe. I continue with the ratio of 3 parts fertilizer, 2 parts calcium nitrate. It's a fertilizer blend. I might have the numbers actually down below me right here. I think I have. It's a 5 to 12 to 26 hydroponic blend, and then the calcium nitrate is 15.5 0 to 0. Nitrogen 15.5. So I'm running that at all times. 2 parts of the calcium nitrate, 3 parts of the hydro formula and 1 part of a magnesium sulfate, which is basically Epsom salts. You can use Epsom salts. So yeah, I do that, and I don't change my recipe between veg and bloom. What I do change is my EC. I'll slightly bump it up if I feel like I need to. Sometimes I'll actually lower it for a couple of days if like I think that my EC is too high inside my root zone, and I'll just give it a couple of days to kind of lower, because I'm lowering my lights. You know, I'm raising my lights compared to veg, but I'm only going up like 70% intensity of 1,000 watts. So I'm giving them about 700 watts of a double-ended. I'm kind of adjusting my EC a little bit, and then I'm bumping up my pH to like into the 6.2 range from where it was at like a 5.8 to a 6.0 range. I'm bumping it up to like a 6.2 to 6.3 range, and that's all week 1. Doing the same deal with scrogging week 1, at least a shaping layer, and trying to get as much of my bottoms cleaned up week 1 as I can, doing some internal pruning, kind of leaving most of the leaves at the top end, letting them grow, letting them bush out. And then I'll leave that kind of it for week 1, because I do a lot. I try to get all of my lollipopping done at least by week 3. And then I try to have all my trellising on by week 3, but I don't really change too much throughout the rest of flower as far as nutrition. Week 1, I will give them some microbes. I do Tribus. So I'll give them some Tribus on week 1, and maybe some Botanigard for some IPM.
Again, that's another really good point, Red. Talking about adding microbes. I didn't say that I did that either, but I do. I use Mammoth P, and I'm using this product, Organitech again. They made it called Amplify, and it's like an all-purpose. There's some that are really good for nitrogen fixing, some for potassium, some for phosphorus, and so another thing that I won. So I'm just trying to use it up, and so far I like it. But yeah, microbes, super important.
Yeah, it's something that I'll do outdoor also. I'll try to just maybe like bust out like a microbe tea. Usually just compost. Like I'll do some local worm castings, whatever I have laying around, or just homemade compost and brew up some compost and try to do that. I like doing a little happy dance depending on when the first week of flower is outdoors. You know, I mean, if it's coming in early July, I'm doing a dance around the plant. I'm doing a handstand and a cartwheel and singing lullaby. If it's coming at the end of August, I'm going to start building the greenhouse week 1. So that's kind of how I treat that. And I don't really, outdoors is a totally different beast, but that's week 1 outdoor. I don't do too much additives. I mean, I'll depending on what's in season really for outdoor. Like if burdocks heavy, I know it's high potassium and phosphorus, but I'll chop up the burdock and lay it down anyways, just because I know that it'll slowly break down and the plant will be able to utilize the potassium and phosphorus that it'll provide, et cetera, with all the plants around the property. So
Ooh, thanks for throwing in the outdoor week 1. I didn't even think about that. That's super helpful too.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be variable. So, I mean, you can't just expect whatever, like a certain crop that you're going to be able to like immediately get your plant juice from or compost from. You might have to wait. So I just like to utilize everything, chop and drop in place all season long. That way it's there for next season.
I think the only things I missed is I would recommend, like, if you have a dimmable light, I like to run 25% still, even at in week 1. What else? I'm also assuming that if you're following my recipe, you literally everything except the soil reconditioners on the recipe list that's posted in the description, that would be top dressed at that point. And as far as week 2, yeah, I just basically, it's the same thing goes as week 1, other than I won't spray anything, but I will take clones in week 2. What about y'all?
I guess that's a good point. Is I would try to get my clones done in week 1 if I hadn't already, before I flip them if I needed to. That is a good point too. I want to do that.
I usually do my cloning as they go, before they, like day 1 or before that, even maybe a week or 2 before that even. I like to pull early because I just have too many plants in veg anyway, so I'm always cycling through plants. So I'll just pull them as a topping technique in veg, basically. So I'm basically just waiting for the plants to grow good clones for me. So that's kind of how I clone. But so it's not a thing in flower. But
Yeah.
lighting, I do with my if they're under my Raging Kush. Some nice. What is that? Abolished?
Yeah, reach over and hit my damn mic button. That is Miss C's Babel. Cameron never does it
Yeah,
justice.
Babel. I haven't even smoked it. I just seen pictures.
Dang.
That's good stuff.
Good.
Looks like some good stuff.
It's just straight oranges. I wish it had some gas or some sour on it, though.
But if I'm under my Raging Kush, I'm going to start trying to dial back my reds in the first couple weeks of flower, just like you do as a finishing touch. I'm going to try to do the same thing in the beginning, probably first 2 weeks, and just see how my plants react. And why I'm doing that is I'm trying to control stretch. I'm trying to see if it works to keep them more squat and more of a tighter internode spacing. If I'm hitting them with full blast, 100% blues, and I dial the reds all the way down to maybe 10 to 20%, maybe 10% for week 1, 20% week 2, see how the plants reacted and adjust from there. It's going to be fun playing with that color changes. So that's what my plan is for my next round, underneath that light. And then what was the other thing you brought up? Oh, one thing I wanted to bring up. I know I'm kind of pushing it closer to the end, but
I want to stop you with the lights, and then because I want to say like my limiting factor, I wish that I had enough double-ended metal halide bulbs and like a way to get them up to my ceiling over a plant canopy so that I could have metal halides that first week of flower, because dimming my HPS bulbs down to like 60-70% is giving me a very red spectrum that first week of flower. So it's like the total opposite of maybe what I might want to do, but I mean, again, I'm not getting negative effects. Like I'm getting flowering occurring fast within the first 5 to 7 days, no problem. 3 to 5 days sometimes, but that's something that I would like to do. Anyway, continue. Go ahead.
I would just suggest that your next how you ever, I don't know how you do things, but every time I get a little bit of money, I'll set like a little tiny bit off to the side, and eventually that's my little mad money. But I take that mad money, I'll get yourself one metal halide and just hang it right next to or in between two of the lights that you have there, and just unplug your HPS for the first week and plug in that metal halide. Even the one in there could give you a big improvement, and you can use it again at the end for a finishing bulb. So man, I think it's a great idea. I didn't even think about it, but fuck dude, if you did that, you could fucking step your game up just one at a time, and as they pay each other off, just keep adding one, and you can do it for everyone.
I have the space because I'm retrofitted for like I have the space for like 10 lights in each room. I only have like 6 in there right now, but even like at like an even tic-tac-toe pattern would be 9 lights, right? So I could very easily stick a metal halide in my very center ball, which is kind of the plan. I really wanted to do a multi-grid, like have like a tic-tac-toe pattern, and like every other light be a metal halide, and just run with it full cycle that way, ideally,
Or maybe even CMH. You can play with CMH. You get those 630 CMHs. That would be another thing, an option.
I've often thought of that too.
I'll say my best garden to date is mixed spectrum HID, metal halide and HBS. Man, like I love that combination. I've not been able to beat it since.
In the end, I think I'm trying to shoot for these LEDs that you can mount at the same height as HPS, and I think I might try to go with those for at least starters every other, and then slowly work my way out of HPS.
Tell you what, HLG just released a fucking monster that would be perfect. They said it's an HID replacement, and it's one of the most, not one of the most, it'll be the most efficient one on the market that you can get. So, which means could qualify if you get a hold of your local power company, could qualify for a rebate to even, I think the price right now is like just over $1,000. So if he qualifies for a rebate, you might even be able to get some of that paid for and get it for even cheaper.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's for a different topic, but I don't know how they would do that without operators permits or anything.
You guys see that? The force is with us tonight. Zoom gave us unlimited minutes, so we don't have to stop for breaks.
I just saw that. I was just gonna shout him out. Shout
Is
out
that
to
what that was? I was wondering what that was.
they about you
waiting
weren't
for the-
joking. You weren't joking when we first logged in. We were talking before the show. You said they must have heard you yelling at them. There you go. They're appeasing you.
Yeah, damn Zoom. I had no idea it was an issue because I never listened to any of the shows on headphones on a phone. But we had the Zoom recordings are getting sent to me in mono. So anybody that was listening on headphones, anytime any of us were quiet or anything, it would make it to where basically people couldn't hear us. So I figured it out today, though. I'll be able to split the tracks. Now we have 2 tracks for both headphones, so should be good to go. I'm going to take down probably a few of the episodes that had a problem and re-release them for everybody. So
There you go. He's a
Yeah.
production
Yeah.
master. Get in there. Master producer.
That's awesome.
I really
But
appreciate all that hard work you're doing over there, Abolished. Holy shit.
I appreciate all the work you guys
Sure
put
it
in.
wasn't
It's nothing without the team.
No, I was gonna get back to lighting. I was seeing guys checkerboard them with LEDs in the CMH too, and I've been chatting with a buddy of mine. He loves his 630 CMHs, and they got the new 1,000 ones coming out. There's a grower choice. They got 500-watt light bulbs, I guess.
See,
I thought it was-
Nanolux had
I think
1,000
it was
watt
3
too.
bulbs, but when I started looking at it closer, it's got 2 bulbs and they're 500-watt each or whatever.
Yeah, the 630s are the
Is that what that
630s
is?
that we
Okay.
run at work are the 630s that we run at work are two bulbs like this,
Yeah.
facing each other. Yeah.
That's the way the 1,000 is. They just made a bigger bulb, I guess, or whatever.
Yes, that's crazy.
Yeah, I was in a debate with I was thinking about getting because all my lights are Nanolux, so it only makes sense. Nanolux has a 1,000-watt CMH to attempt to do that, but I guess the reviews on them in the beginning were really bad. So I don't know if they've upgraded their technology for them at all, but I guess they were blowing ballast, I think bulbs. They were blowing something left and right off the first rip. And, I mean, it could have been a mistaken. It could have been just bad reviews or something or whatever. So I don't know, but if there's some good reviews on that, I'd like to know. Because I thought about putting those up, but I'd like to keep it with Nanolux, to be honest, because that's what my HIDs already are. And it's not that it's all within like the timing program, because I can control the lights from anywhere. I can shut them off and do the whole thing. So I'd rather not have to have 2 separate time programs and risk one of them kicking on at the wrong time, just random, other stuff you often worry about with your light programs and things like that. But mine are great because they're wireless. All I have to do is plug my ballast right into the wall, and then everything else is just wireless. So it's all ran off of transmitting units and USB jacks and stuff. So they're really cool. If I could figure out a way to get LED, like if Nanolux did LEDs, that'd be great, but they're not doing that. So.
I would bet that the Grower's Choice 315s would link up with your system because those are smart lights too. Like they're great. They won't fire up if they don't have enough power. They'll power down if power is fluctuating. Like they run a whole diagnostics test before they fire up. It's a great light.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess the other thing is if they can be like 4 feet off the canopy, that'd be great too. But we'll see. I'm planning to just change my whole rooms over eventually. That's all money. That's all money I don't have. So this is all like me window shopping.
Yeah, I believe that new HLG was a 30. I believe it was 30 inches from the canopy is what the hang height is on it.
That's not bad. Yeah, that's cool.
I think Miss C's running. I think she's only maybe got 2 or 3 feet to her CMH right now in her room. That room's kicking ass. She just stripped it last week. You can't tell the difference.
I just put in a grower choice, the ROI 680. So it's that bar style one. And that thing's been throwing, I mean, that's pretty badass. I'm pretty impressed with it. And I think comparatively, probably the new HLG light is real similar. I think because at the time that's what I had looked at was like the 550 was just a little, you know what I mean? It was a little less wattage and it was a little less micromole. And I was like, well, I kind of want the bigger wattage and a little more power to it. And I think that's what their new light is they just up the wattage and put some more boards on. And it's funny the games that it is, though, man. It's like, you know, if anything, I think trying to find something quality is a good idea for LED for sure.
What I like about them is that their price point is pretty good for being top of the line. I mean, when you're looking at top of the line LEDs, they don't usually try to screw you too much on the price. I mean, I was surprised when I saw that when they came out with this new light, they put the new light at the 550 price, and they discounted all the 550s down. So I was like, oh, man, that's badass. So it's basically the same price for, you know, their flagship light, and then they discounted the other lights. And it's like, I've got 2 of those 550s hanging in my room, and I can replace. They even were selling used 550s on there that are at least as good as one of my 550s that I have hanging up using right now for like $500. I was like, dang.
Yeah,
So
I love HLG. I have 3 of them in my room too, and that's just it. I bought 2 of them. I had them for 4.5 years, and then sequence in an order. The drivers went out within months of each other, but all I had to do is order a new driver, replace it, boom, the board's still running. But so I did get an R spec to replace the first one, and then I got this grower choice one just because I wanted, I just wanted to see the difference a little bit.
what do you think the difference is? Is there a difference between the 2 spectrums, between the R spec and the grower's choice?
Yeah, you can see it side by side, but I really like the R spec. I think it performs great.
Me too. I'm a huge fan of the R spec.
Yeah, I think on the grower choice one, they have like blue, like a little more bluer of a spectrum. It's hard to tell. Like I don't like to look at it, but like when you look up at it, it's not like you go across the bar. It's like yellow, then it's kind of like a blue looking, and then there's some reds, and you know what I mean. But there's some different color diodes through it, so there's some differences. But I think
It's cool to have.
yeah.
It's cool to have the mix, like when you have them hanging next to each other. That's my favorite. You know what I mean? The side lighting, because it seems like everything that gets in the middle of 2 lights, it seems like that side lighting area always seems to be the. What was that? That was my lighter. Everything's good, but everything in side lighting always seems to be some of the better buds to me, or the chirpiest stuff. I don't know. Maybe it's just my own opinion, but I love that. I love that middle ground where all the light mixes and comes in from the sides.
That's something that I've been like. I was kind of wanting to switch from LEDs, but I'm starting to get pretty good with like my grow mouse pucks and my 4x2s. And one of the things I'm learning is like the lights that I'm gonna want to go for in the future are going to be lights that go across the entire the entire canopy, basically. Like I like my Canons. I've grown very very cheaply in that room a couple times for just having the 2 in there and a 5x5. But I think that room would do a lot better with, say, 4 Canons. That way there was more points of light. Like, I just think that if I threw an HLG or even a spider setup that went all the way across there, just completely covered it really nice, I would do better. And that's what I hope to do here soon, rather than buying an HID again.
And one thing that I really like what Smiley was talking about with the bar style lights, that Raging Kush from Science LED, which I'm fucking falling in love with too. The only negative so far that I can say about it is it must have some kind of a magnetic ballast of some sort, because when you try to take pictures anywhere near the damn thing, you get those black lines through your picture, which drives me insane. But other than that, but anyhow, it's got like 4 bars, 4 thin bars that's on a frame. I don't know if that's what the grower's choice looks like, but the benefit of that is when I'm getting these tall, stretchy plants, instead of growing into a light, I can just bump them over a little bit and they can grow past the light. And that solves my issue. Because then if it grows past the light, whatever, it's just going to slow it down and it's not going to get much light up there. It's going to get all the side light that's bouncing around, enough to keep it alive. But I'm not burning the crap out of my buds, you know what I mean? So it's really cool to be able to just, move your buds out of the way if you do get one that just shoots up on you like that. And I've been using my yo-yos to hang right off of the light bars. So it's like, it's just an extra thing I have to hang my yo-yos off of to support the plant better. So I found I really like the bars for that. Now, is that to have anything to do with the actual light coming out? Well, I don't know, but it is just one more feature of the light that I like.
I was
And
really
I,
impressed with the Fluence. My homie had the Fluent. Well, he runs Fluence lights, and like the flowers were growing up through them, like you were describing, Spartan. They were like, one of them was just kind of pinned to it, you know, no bleaching, nothing. I mean, it was fine. It was fine. I mean, it was growing just fine. He wasn't. I'm like, you gonna mess with it? Maybe if I could see some mold or something, I'm like, whatever. It was fine. You know,
Yep.
you're not gonna be mold. It's gonna be hot enough. It's not gonna get mold right there.
We had those
But it's
same
not
exact,
burning.
yeah, exactly what you're talking about. We have those same exact fluents at work. We use them at our like right after clone stage up to basically the whole time
I
they're in
want to
one
say he
gallon.
was like 80% intensity or something like that. So whatever that is, like 500 watts or something, 600 watts, something little under 600 watts probably. What are they, 660s or something like that?
I don't even know how much they pull. We just have them cranked way up in the ceiling so that it's a big distance between them and the plant, and the plants fucking love them.
So I was looking to mess with those under veg. Well, at least Fluence, the Razor RAZRs or something like that.
Now the
2x4s.
the fluence that we have, if you want dimming, you got to get that separately. So you make sure you get that because we didn't, and that's annoying. So that's why.
It's nice that operates more than one unit though. So that's kind of, at least that daisy. If the lights don't daisy chain, at least the dimmer daisy chains. You don't have to get it free. You know what I mean? So that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
and dimmers are nice on LEDs. Hell, like you can do so much more with that. Like it makes it a lot easier to work with it. So that was my biggest thing is I was trying to like just blast my lights in the beginning of flower and whatnot, and it would actually stunt growth in some of the tents. That's not good.
And one more benefit is when you dim it, you're getting even more money because that makes the LED more efficient. As you dim it down, it's becoming more efficient. So you're saving even more money. Right now, I have in my flower room of 3 lights, 2 of those 3 are dimmed down. So I
Yeah,
love dimming.
from what I understand, you can still keep the same spectrum too when you dim those down. Unlike when we had our
Yeah.
HDs, it messes with it a little bit. So that's
Exactly.
really nice.
Yep, it doesn't mess the spectrum up at all. That's the main benefit.
So
you don't lose spectrum.
So let's jump back on track here and let's say week 3 because that's a pretty crucial week for a lot of us, especially like that's where most of us go in there and do like our final stripping and whatnot. Basically, figuring out. I like to figure out what route I'm going to go with my plants. Like if I'm going to have to, it's going to be smarter to throw them all in a net because they're short and stocky, or it's smarter for me to stake everything up and roll from there. But generally, I like to strip pretty hard right there at that point, if not take every single freaking fan leaf there is off the plant. So, but yeah, that's what I do for week 3.
Ouch.
So week 3, I'm thinking of I want to push a little bit of nutrition for the bulking of the flower. And for me, I think I've talked about this before. My strategy is I don't give a shit about phosphorus. It's all potassium for me. So that's when I hit them with that little compost tea mix thing, dry amendment. And that gives them that basically a 2-2-10. And that's my bloom, my bloom booster or whatever you want to call it. And I'll just feed it the one time, usually a tablespoon, maybe 2 tablespoons, depending on what the plant looks like. And in my opinion, that's about enough to feed that plant for 2 weeks. So you think about it, week 3, you add 2 weeks to that, that gives you to week 5, tells me, okay, one more week, which we're talking week 4, I might be able to give one more feeding just like I did on week 3, which will push me long enough in the flower where I don't care. I'll be being pretty close to what my quote unquote flush week, if you want to imagine that in organics. So flush being to me is just that I'm not top dressing anything. So that's my strategy. Look at the plant and I'm going to either feed 3 and 4 or just week 3. And it's that same top dress. I don't give them anything else. Maybe an insect frass if I see any kind of yellowing at this point, which I shouldn't be, hopefully. But if I am, I might give it an insect frass because it's only a 2 in nitrogen, and at week 3 I'm comfortable with that.
Sorry, man, I was talking to this again. So like, as far as week 3 is definitely a transition week. I do de-leaf. I don't like to strip them totally, but I like to take a lot of the big families off. So I try to get them breathing, get them some air. It gives me a chance to get another inspection in there. So I always kind of eyes open when I'm doing that, looking for potential problems. Because I will say, like, I'm not a fan of spraying with buds on, but if you got to do it, finding it at week 2 or 3 and trying to hit it really hard before you really get any kind of a golf ball or dime sized nug on there is going to be the most beneficial. So, like, trying to get in and locate those things before they're an issue. But as far as nutrition, week 3 to 4 is when I start to bring in my fish hydrolysate, which is a higher potassium and phosphorus than it is in nitrogen. It's like a 5, 10, 15 off the top of my head. But yeah, anyway. But that's kind of what I do as opposed to a top dress to try to bring in the nutrient that they need to really transition. I want to say though, and I want to kind of preface before I give that, but it is, I have found it's kind of important at what point you start to hit them with that. So like, I think it's the potassium that from the research I've done on it, but bringing in a high level of potassium into a water soluble situation like that. So if the buds aren't really reaching a bud set yet, and you bring that potassium in too early, you can really jeopardize your end yield, as opposed to like what you're trying to accomplish with that is get a bigger yield. So I don't really, I more bring in the malted barley first week 3, and I'm more like week 4. So I do wait till they have a better nug, but I guess I just wanted to get that point in about the potassium, because that was something I've just been researching, because that's something I use. So like, I don't know. That was just how I was doing it, I guess.
I wish I remember who had said it, who was being interviewed on the Kiss Organics podcast, but a lady who I don't know if she herself did the study, or she was from a university, or she saw the study, but anyhow, they had found that cannabis specifically, even at a phosphorus deficiency, didn't suffer in yield. So as soon as I heard that, I don't even worry about phosphorus so much. Even if I'm showing a phosphorus deficiency, I could care less in flower anymore, because if I'm not going to suffer in yield, and I'm not going to worry. Let me put it this way: it's so much easier to suffer from overfeeding than it is to suffer from underfeeding when it comes to final product, in my opinion. So for me, if I can just have the base level of phosphorus in there, which I know is plenty enough to keep the levels to where it needs to be, is far better than taking a chance to overfeed and getting that other effect that I don't really want. So I guess that's kind of my strategy when it comes to flowering, is like phosphorus is not so important to me, especially past week 4 or 5. I'm like, yeah, who cares about phosphorus?
I love that you and I have both referenced that study so many times in so many different episodes. Just like I hope it's being pounded in everybody's heads that we don't have to like over phosphorus our plants. Like that stuff's actually like not that good for the water table and ground and stuff like that.
Yeah,
We don't need a lot of phosphorus.
Aren't the outdoor soil tests like everything is overloaded with phosphorus in Michigan? Like, chill out.
Yeah, it's bad. Nitrates. I mean, we're bad with we're bad with everything, but we don't need a ton of phosphorus.
And I do use Mammoth P once a week all throughout flower, and that's that helps make the phosphorus that is in the soil even more soluble and more plant available. So I'm not. That's another reason why I'm just not worried about phosphorus in flowering. Let's just take that off the table. The microbes got that.
I like to use
go
fish.
ahead, man.
No, I was gonna say it's biological. I like that fish shit brand. So I've been digging.
I'm a big fan of fish shit also.
I like to have my lights bumped up to 100% intensity by week 3. I like to have my major defoliations done. I don't necessarily totally strip my plants. I leave kind of a lot of foliage in there, to be honest. Whatever I can really manage in a timely fashion. There's only so many hours in a day, and I can only be in there for so long. So yeah, I try to get everything done as I can. Bottoms are done by this time. I don't have any. I'm usually up to like the bottom scrog net of just bare legs of the stalk by week 3. 100% light intensity. I already said that. I'm not really doing much with my fertilizer except for resetting my root zone. I don't run a lot of runoff, so I run a lower EC and it just kind of builds up. So after about the 3rd week, after about 20 days or so, 21 days, I like to give myself a decent, I don't want to call it a flush, but I'll like lower my EC down to like 250, 300, and run to runoff. I'll run a good 10-20% of runoff, maybe 30% of runoff, and just kind of flush them out, reset the root zone at that point, and then I'll stabilize my EC at about 1.0, maybe a little bit less, but I'll stabilize my pH again at about 6.2. I'll just keep it there, and that's it. I add some more microbes. And
I was just gonna say, man, if you want to get fancy there, right when you're watering in that low EC, throw in your humic acid or fulvic acid, and your tribus. You said you had some tribus. Throw them in there too, because then what's left in your soil with that flush is all that good shit. Your humic acids, that's going to make everything more available, and your microbes to break all that shit down if there's anything left behind. I think that'd be badass.
And
I'm all excited.
There
about
are a couple of things that you can, mix up with Jax too. I know they're compatible. A good B12 vitamin or a good fulvic acid are definitely compatible. So, sure, humic would be just the same, if not more beneficial.
Just curious, Red. You said you don't switch anything on the fertilizer. You just run the same all the way through. You don't add like a.
I don't change it. I don't do anything. Yeah, start to finish.
It's
The only thing I change is my EC. The only thing I change is, whenever my res runs dry, I'll, run a little bit. Or when I'm like topping off my res or something like that, I'll just run in a nice low EC worth of whatever. My moms will get like sometimes a week worth of like no EC at all. My veg room will get, they'll get like flushed for a week sometimes just because I'll space out, add nutrients to my reservoir. And then usually about the time that the plants start to give me a hint of a nitrogen deficiency, I'll jack them back up with the jacks, But yeah, I don't do anything else. I just do my 3-2-1 because the mineral content is there. I mean, everything that most agricultural plants in nature need, that at least science has discovered so far, is in it. So it's just about keeping your environment in check and running that. And I mean, I get giant buds. I get better results than I ever have with anything
I've
else.
seen your pictures, man. You have like awesome canopies. That's why I was just wondering because I've never heard
a lot of that's a lighting though, man.
I got stream powder. I got, you know what I mean, Canna Boost or whatever, and that surprised me. That's awesome.
Well, a lot of it's like environment, because I've been running Jax for so long, and the differences that I've seen in quality, have came because my environments, I don't have more than like a 5-degree fluctuation. I don't have more than a 5-degree humidity fluctuation. I don't have my lighting. When I went from single-ended HPS to double-ended HPS, I doubled my yield. I doubled the size of everything. When I also added CO2. So I mean, you can't really beefing up the intensity of your lights only does so much if you don't, adequately supplement CO2, keep your temperatures up, keep your humidity up. Like it's all a ratio of each other, and if one of them's down, the rest don't really work,
Well, it falls to the lowest denominator, the limiting factor. So that's kind of what you guys were talking about on the cheap home grower or whatever, Spartan. And I asked the question to Dr. Coco, but he misunderstood my question, I think. But all I was saying there is the light source absolutely drives how much the plant's going to grow and how much nutrition it's going to need. You know what I'm saying? That's all I was getting at there.
Right.
has to be tied. It can't just be, there's no scientific evidence that it isn't tied at all. Well, yeah, it is. It's just going to be how much did the plant use or not use, you know?
Yeah,
Well,
my idea behind it is just not to force feed anything. It's just to, I'm going to stick with this recipe that these scientists put together because they're a lot smarter than I am, and then I'm going to stick with that ratio that the community has kind of decided fits a certain formula that's kind of been around for maybe it's outdated, maybe it's not, maybe it's been adjusted, but
no, that's
I
come right out of Big
adjusted.
Egg. It's super successful. It's come right out of
It's a
Big Egg.
successful ratio, and so I roll with that, and then I adjust my knowledge of the plant to just kind of see what it needs, and then I adjust my EC. It's a mixture of utilizing hydroponic theory and a couple of other things to my advantage, and then not trying to steroid beef up the plant with hydroponics or with synthetics, but to allow the plant drive the plant with the mineral content that I supply it. And then when the plant needs more, I give it more. If it doesn't want it, I'm wasting my money. And that's the last thing I want to waste. You know what I mean? So that's one reason that I do run Jacks is my inputs for the year are cocoa, which is about $20 a bag. I can get away with about 6 plants off a bag for flour. Otherwise I'm using a little half-gallon veg-in. So I got like this. Who knows how many I could get off a bag? I think I can get like 50 plants or something off a bag of cocoa with my little half-gallons. So, I mean, there's not much cost other than my annual fertilizer cost. It's probably less than $100 a year because I get longer than a year out of my fertilizer, It's very, very low cost.
One thing I wanted to add, I just remembered, I'm high as fuck right now, by the way. Side note.
Me too, and that's why I'm so long-winded. And I'm like,
What is in the air tonight? I am absolutely blew out myself. Like my eyes are feeling puffy.
Apparently, there's some marijuana in there.
Yeah, all I've had was I had 0.3 grams of RSO, and then so that's the biggest thing behind it. And then I smoked a couple bowls of that blueberry Contessa that it has got some CBD in it, I guess. I don't know. I have to get it tested, but shout out to Ego, man. This stuff's fucking awesome. So anyhow, I forgot in week 3, that's like my cutoff time. And this is a little controversial, but I will fucking super crop in flower if I have unruly plants, which I often do. So I like to manipulate canopies. I'm a little rough with the girls, man. I like to manipulate them and put them where I want them. So these tall, stretchy legs, they get bent where I want them. I don't care if I got to spread them far, bend them this way, bend them that way, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. But after week 3, I don't like to do that anymore. So I really make it a point that, okay, week 3, this is go time. This is really kind of like what Abolish was saying. Plan your canopy. Okay, this is where I want my bud sites to be and make it happen. Week 3, that's when I do that.
Yeah, you pretty much know the direction your plant's going to go at that point. You should be able to visualize, think into the future. But I was thinking, like, this time I wanted to, since we're getting to week 4, and you guys actually talked about adding it in on week 3 is the potassium, and I was hoping to get that through my old stalks and leaves that I've been stacking up that I was just going to burn into ash. And I was wondering what way y'all thought would be best to get it in there. Like, is it going to be, if it's water soluble, I'll just top dress it and then do a top watering. Or do I need to do some kind of tea to get it going to make sure I get some potassium in at week 4? Because when I used to run synganic or even fully synthetic, I would always get like a really, really big bulk when I threw in potassium at week 4. Say into week 3, but right at the beginning of week 4 would be my goal.
Yeah, I think I just, for some reason, I've tried different things. I've tried teas, and I'm brewing one right now, but I don't often do them. I really am just a huge fan of doing what's the fucking easiest for me to do. And that's always been top dress, man. And so if it's going to be a top dress that's water soluble, yeah, hit that shit at week 3. But if you find that you don't get the results you want, don't give up on it. Give it at week 2. Maybe it just takes longer to break down. Maybe it's not as water soluble as you had thought, and it needs some time to break down from the microbes. So try it, you know, a little earlier, you know. But most like organic nutrients, I generally speaking, I'm waiting around like 2 weeks. When I'm putting it on there, I'm planning on that hitting the plant in 2 weeks. You're going to get some before that, but I'm planning on the like majority of it, like the bell curve. We all know what that's looking like now. Where that bell curve's at, I'm thinking that's about 2 weeks, and then it rapidly falls off. So, in my experience, I would kind of expect that. So and plan for it like that, and just kind of manipulate it from there until you can figure it out.
I'm pretty sure there are some other things in that too, but I believe it's available potassium, so I would be kind of careful, I guess. But I know we talked about that in chat that it doesn't adjust pH or whatever. So that was the one concern I thought of right away is it going to adjust the pH? Because some of the calcium additives, like oyster shell and some of that stuff, can fluctuate that.
So, oh, go ahead, Smiley. You finish up, man. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought you were.
No cut off. I was just saying that was something to bear in mind there. You know, like some of that stuff's like readily available, some not. I think that one is, but.
So I found a list of other high potassium, maybe vegetables or things you could probably source laying around your garden or locally. Looks like cantaloupe, melons, apricots, berries, winter squashes, tomatoes, potatoes, sweet peppers. So it looks like a lot of things that you can grow or that are going to be food scraps this year could make great potassium-based FPJ, if not just using your cannabis scraps.
I actually have a shout out to, is it Country Roots, who has the store in Newego? Shout out to Country Roots. I've got a paper, or it's more like it's paper like fold out, and it's about like a poster size. And one of the things, it's got a whole KNF like feeding chart to get you through a whole cycle of a plant's life. Yeah, he's got it right there. Smiley's got it right there. And in the corner there, it's got the dynamic accumulators. And so
Perfect.
So you got all these plants.
I'm over here messing with the old-fashioned internet, and you got a new dang fangled pamphlet.
Yeah, and I actually took a picture of just that part, and I have it on my phone, so I can reference it whenever I want.
And I want to make a note and give a shout out to Chris, because those are all handwritten, man. Like on my copy, it's like
so is mine.
Like a piece of paper that he hand wrote them all, and then just took a picture of it or a copy of it and put it in. You know, like because I went to one of his like first talks at Horizon, so that's cool, man.
Yeah. So for example, I'm not going to name them all because there's so many, but like clover. I mean, come on. I mean, I've got clover growing right now as a top dress in one of my olive flowers. Peppermint. I've got spearmint. I don't know if that counts. Stinging nettle. You know, these things aren't like crazy hard to come by. There's all kinds of good stuff on there. So check out.
Nettle's probably everywhere.
Yep. And you know, Country Root. If you don't want to fuck with it, he's already done the FPJ for you. You can buy it right from him. I think it's countryroots.com or something like that.
And that was it's backwards, I guess, but that's that hydrolysate that I run too. So it's a 512 14. So
Yes.
5% calcium and 6% sulfur.
It sucks. We did have a plan to go out there and do a tour and an episode at his shop because I really want to show off what's out there. So hopefully we can just get him on here to at least do maybe a live stream or something and show the store and talk about them products one night. I think the Frugal Force be really into the store.
I like his tea. I like his brewer. I want to get that Vortex brewer that he builds.
I
posting videos of him like a different swirl. The dude's done every angle you can think of on those. So I guarantee he's got the best Vortex you can come up with, man.
I bought from him the little glass Vortex spinner thing that sticks at the end of one of your watering bottles, but I've never even fucked with it. I don't even know where the hell it is right now. I remember I bought it. I thought it was so cool at the time.
Well, I just like it. Like Red had a live stream earlier, and he was showing his compost tea brewer, and it was an airlift style. And they do the airlift, but it makes it a vortex. So like it drains to a point, it's got the angled bottom, I guess, to make it a vortex. But that is the most efficient way to get the highest amount of dissolved oxygen in your tea brew. Just so.
Yeah, I had a Venturi built one time. I had this fancy ass Venturi, man. I looked up the plans on the internet. I bought a whole bunch of PVC fittings and couplings and like made this really, really technical Venturi. And it was like a quad legged Venturi that you'd put the pump at the bottom and it'd come through and do all this stuff. Till I realized if it's going to heat up the reservoir to like 80 degrees, right? You know, with the pump running all the times. So I have this Venturi. It's awesome. I mean, it's not going to go bad. It's fucking PVC. You know what I mean? So maybe it'll be good for like a giant, like I was thinking an aquarium for doing aquaponics or something like that. It might really help out for.
At Mid Mechanical, we have our tanks that we fill up to before we feed to run our irrigation lines are shaped just like that. And so we drop a sump pump in to get it started, a suction cup on the side, and just get that, just like you're saying, get that vortex going. And it's just it looks like looks like a tornado in the middle of or a toilet bowl, you know what I mean? But you can see almost to the drain. I mean, it goes way down. And then then you just unplug that pump and then start the lines up, and it just, so it is really cool. I mean, it mixes nutrients so fast. It's just ridiculous. It's
I've
so
always
awesome.
wanted to get sucked down a whirlpool, see where it goes.
It's so awesome to pH adjust and have it, and you see it like in real time move. You're not sitting there for 5 minutes and stirring and then adding some pH and then stirring. You know, this thing, you're just leaving it in there and you're like, oh, okay, a couple more drops. You know, I love that stuff.
So do you guys do anything special for week 4 other than maybe last minute bend something over if it got crazy, or inspection? Like,
hey, here's my growing with Spartan by feel. So week 4 for me is the time where they're done stretching. At that point, all they want to do is start, hopefully, building bulky buds. Later in their life cycle, when they get really heavy buds, the branch will start falling towards the ground. Well, once it gets to a certain point, it sends a signal through the plant to like, okay, stop bulking up over here. We're going to break a fucking branch. So we have to support them. If you support them, they don't really get that signal and they just keep putting out. So at week 4, that tells me it's no longer going to grow anymore as far as physically up or down. So now I can start figuring out ways to support everything, especially my big top terminal buds, because those are going to be my heaviest. So this is where I love plant yo-yos. Any of my big buds or main stems, they all get a support yo-yo and they get hung right now. So no amount of weight they can build is going to affect that branch. And that's the only thing really special I do at week 4.
mute button.
Yeah, I put a final leaf stripping on them, and that's pretty much the last time I would touch them as far as that goes. But then I'll put a top scrog on, and then I pretty much am leaving them alone. So yeah, I mean they're done doing anything. You don't want a super crop. You don't want. I mean, they're not going to stand back up. It's pretty much past all that. So, you know, at that point, that's when I lock down the secondary scrog on the top. None of them really have gotten enough weight to where they're flipping and flopping yet anyway. So it gives me a chance to get in there and work on them one last time, put that top on, and keep your fingers crossed. Ride it out.
Yeah, my final scrog is on end of week 3. Week 4 is when I'll do my staking on plants that need to be staked that I don't have in my scrog. So I do about the same thing as Spartan. I kind of wait until they start to do the lean, and then I start to put in the stakes. I don't go like right into my cocoa, like right in the middle. You know, I go in between the pot and the cocoa. I try to keep it on the outer edge, and I just use friction between the pot, and I use the vertical length of the branch to keep the stake upright, and the stake keeps the plant upright. So I don't really have an issue. So and if I have to, you know, I'll get one like maybe somewhere in the middle where I know I might broke a little root or something, but the roots are resilient. They're going to come back strong. Plants are great. So that's pretty much all I do week 4. And otherwise just kind of doing the same thing. I might check my EC on my runoff or something, or I might lower it or raise it depending on what the plants are telling me. I'm watching my plants from here on out. I'm just letting it ride. I'm going to kick back and be in a good mood going in the garden so the plants feel it. And then I'm going to keep a close eye on them, and they're going to tell me what I want to do with my EC. You know, whether I want to really lower it for a couple days or boost it back up because they need it.
And cool. And basically, I mean, if we're on to week 5, right here, this point is where I pretty much stopped doing everything. If ideally my watering worked out, where I did my little bit of top watering and filled my res week 1, and it's dried out now at week 5. I'm wanting to do a full-on watering where I fill my res completely. This is the only time I do it during my run, all the way up to the top. And that should give me enough water all the way to the end. But yeah, basically from 5 to week 9 or whatever, whenever the plant finishes, I'm just watching
it. I just heard something today. They were talking about like some breeders will count weeks in flowering based on when they start to form buds versus when you actually flip them. So I just want to clarify that, like when you guys say week 5, you're talking from the day of flip. So technically that would be day 35 then?
it. Would just depend on when you count. I count, the day of flip, and I do the 48 hours of darkness pre-hand.
But you count those as like 2 days then, or is that?
No, I don't count those at all as part of the flowering day. The day comes on for the 12 and 12 for the first day, or the whatever, the 11, 13. That's day 1.
Yeah. So I'm usually moving mine with the lights on, so I don't count the day I move them. So I'll start mine the next day as day 1.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
That's
the day
how
I move them,
what I
if the
do
lights
too.
are on, I don't count that day. I let them get a full 12 hours of darkness. After full 12 hours of darkness begins day 1.
Yep. Me too.
Indoor.
That's the best way to say it.
Indoor.
Yep.
But I also, I guess I'll clock. Plant tells me when it's ready. Plant tells me when it's done. Counting days is a strange thing that we do as growers, I think.
I like counting days because it helps me keep track on.
Well, it keeps schedule. It allows you to definitely write a SOP. It allows for a lot of very, very manageable things, especially if you're not always in your garden and you need to tell somebody, hey, I need you to pull this on day 63 because you've grown this thing for 5 years, that on day 63, it's the best. Not day 67, day 63. If you let it go to day 67, you're gonna get this weird curlicue of a tail that comes out, or you're gonna get a nanner, or you're gonna get something. That's what happens at day 67. You know what I mean? Or at least get the top off, get the top of the plant off, and then let the bottoms like go to day 67 because they're still green tomatoes. You know.
You know what? Interesting thing you say that. I'm growing with a autopot system, and it has 9 5-gallon air pots, or what do you call them? Smart pots. 9 of them in a 4x4. So it's 3 rows of 3. So that I've got to grow tall, skinny plants basically, and they fill out the canopy. Now, I have all different strains in there, and of course they've got different finishing times. So I've pulled out the 3 in the middle. So that opened up all this light on the inside, and there's all these little side branches that were like half-ass fucking like immature buds. So I tested that theory, and I was like, you know what? I strung them into the net so they were supported in the light now that they were getting all this light, and I just kept those plants out in there. And the top buds, it's funny because it's 2 headlights, so I'm excited to see what kind of smell profile comes out of it being going a little bit long. And 2 headlights and a GG4. But all those side buds that were like really weak stuff that I would probably just immediately trim off and throw into trim, now are turning into halfway decent buds that I might actually sit there and trim and put in a jar. So it's true. I could see where you could just, take some tops off and do one of the, I've heard that the big outdoor monsters that are grown in California, they'll take it into thirds sometimes. They'll take the top third and then wait a while, take the middle third, and then let the bottom finish. And I guess that the grower's choice, the choice buds are always those last bottom buds, which is cool.
Those are my choice. I mean, sometimes it's out of necessity just because everything else is for, my patience and everything. But I got to agree, man. Like when I'm looking into my canopy, those buds that aren't like full, that are on the inside, not only do they not look full, they don't look ripe. They're a lot of times they still almost have clear white hairs going. They're not even, you can tell that they're premature. They're definitely premature. So if you even let them just mature, they're bound to get a little bit of a density if that top canopy's gone, and now they're finally getting a little bit of light, and they get at least that last maybe 2 weeks of swells. So I kind of have a similar thing going right now. But what I actually have going is I have a bunch of like plants that are about ready at like 60 days, 63 days. And I have a Death Star that's easily going to take another 10 days. So what I'm doing is I'm actually flushing right now everything, including the Death Star. But every couple of days, I'm going in one of my other reservoirs and giving it a full like 600 to 800 ppm and just hand watering in the Death Star just to give it a little boost to EC. That way it can finish out without, needing anything, being able to do a regular flush the last week. So it's kind of the same concept that I would do if I was going to run a dual harvest. I pulled in my situation of synthetics where I'm able to do this is I'd flush, pull the tops, water in an EC, let the plants kind of do their thing for another week and just continue to flush.
Just realized.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Abolish. Sorry.
To say before we got too far ahead, we kind of missed out on the outdoor people. But basically, when you're outdoors, you're kind of doing all these things, basically all the way to the end. You're even stripping sometimes at the very end, right?
Oh, for sure. That's like this is what I always say. It's like once we start stripping, we're stripping all the time. We never stop. It's like that's what you do. It's just like you never get them as stripped as you want to get them, because you'll start on one and you'll be like, okay, if I get one done today, tomorrow I'll start on the next one. Well, by the time you get back to that one, it's already grown completely back. So you're stripping it again, at least in my experience.
You know what I like to do when I'm dealing with a large amount of biomass and it's only me or whatever. And let's say you don't have, let's say you have a dozen plants. You got 12 plants to work with, and you have a finite amount of time, ways to do it. I like to say, all right, I'm going to spend 2 minutes, 3 minutes per plant, no more, no less. I'm not going to, because this plant's bigger than that plant, whatever. I don't care. I'm going to spend 2 to 3 minutes per plant. And what I'm going to do is every few seconds, I'm going to change a branch. I'm not just going to get the entire branch done. I'm just going to do the important stuff. Okay, 2 minutes went by. Did I get the important shit? Yeah. Okay, good. I got a couple more important leaves. Okay, let me take those real quick and move on to the next plant. Work my way through, and then I know that I can get it done.
Right, I'm looking at you. I'm high as fuck, but I'm looking at you like a fucking superhero because I just physically cannot do that. To me, that's like nails on a chalkboard. To me, it's like I cannot finish what I want to do. I don't know if that's OCD or what you call that, but oh my god.
No, it's hard. It's incredibly. I know exactly what you're talking about because I want to sit, and if I don't, what'll end up happening is I'll spend so much time on one plant. I'll be like, I gotta fucking be done. It's 4:00 in the morning, and I have like the rest of all these plants to do. You know what I mean? I know that feeling, man. I know that's a very, very difficult thing to try to only spend 2 minutes on each plant.
Yeah, definitely. I'm an overworker. I tend to. I just have to stop biting off more than I can chew. I just think to be able to grow it the way I want to grow it, maybe I can just grow one. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I haven't even started anything for this series outdoor yet. Haven't started a thing. Hopefully, I'll get that done in the next couple of days.
You're growing one, you just sit there and like stare at it or something. You'd be so bored.
I was gonna say that when I'm growing outdoor, it's usually pruning is usually going alongside with like picking a radish out of the garden and eating it, along with like wrapping it up in a couple of the freshly defoliated cannabis leaves. And usually there's a couple sweet peas growing, all the shit that doesn't make it into the house. You know, it all ends up being my like breakfast and lunch, cannabis leaves included, you know.
I'm getting a kick out of doing with these frugal builds. I'm getting a kick out of being able to be more regenerative. I'm loving using the worm castings. I'm loving just taking a scoop out of the worm bin with worms and worm castings and all, and throwing that in to give a nitrogen boost or something. You know what I mean? It's nice to, between cycles, to let it grow for a couple months with a mix of clover, just for the fuck of it. And it's bringing it's acting like a humidifier. So like, even if I get nothing else out of that thing, it's like keeping the humidity in there fucking awesome. And it's acting like a badass veg space. It's like the pre-flower space for me. It's like the staging zone before flower. And I'm loving playing with that kind of thing, like what Red said, like doing composting and stuff like that. It's just, and it feels good, you know. Instead of taking the banana peel and throwing it in the trash can, you just throw it in the worm bin, or you go throw it in the compost pile. It just fucking feels good.
I hate when I throw away food scraps. Like if I don't have a container or something laying like handy, I'll throw it away. You know what I mean? Because sometimes I just throw it away. You know what I mean? And then I'm like, fuck, I threw away something so incredibly valuable. I'm an idiot. Why did I do that?
That's funny. I got a
Out of the trash
bin, and then so I've run that till it's full, and I usually don't get to run it. It takes me 6 weeks or so to fill it, I guess, or in our household, and then I'll throw that into my worm bin from there, and I usually mix in, you know, rock dust and some oats and barley and kelp and different shit too. But that's been working pretty cool. It's so, like you say, Spartan, it's so cool to just be able to be like I was transplanting today, and I'm like putting them in, and I'm like, all right, boom, handful of worms, worm casting right on top, nice little, you know, tuck you in, here you go, you know, like, to me, that's like the best little transplant shock therapy you could give them, you know?
Yeah, and then I just like me, I'm growing in sip containers, so they have a tube that you water in that goes down to like a bottom water res, right? And then the soil is suspended above it. Well, the corners are all soil, so the soil is actually in contact with the water all the way down to the bottom. On three of the four corners. The fourth corner is the watering tube. And the other day I was in flower, so all the way into flower towards the end of the life cycle. And I looked down with a flashlight in the watering tube because I don't like to water unless it goes dry. So once it's dry, then I give it more water. I like to simulate nature a little bit that way, like by the shore.
I don't know if that shows up or not, but that was the picture of the transplant into the square sip container.
Nice.
That's the square one,
Yeah.
or whatever. So
yeah, it's a lot like what I'm using. And then I was looking down that tube and I seen a worm crawling through there. It put the biggest smile on my face, man, to know there's worms are hanging out down at the bottom, like, you know, swimming around.
Yeah. They'll get in and out of there. They, you know what I mean? They know what they're doing.
Man, when I was building my no-till beds today, I added like 100, probably a little more, maybe a little more than 100 square feet to my garden today. Bunch more 4x8 foot rows of beds, right? And I'm like, I had this like patch of straw that I had laid out from last season that I was letting like summer squash and pumpkins and shit vine out on, and underneath it was some landscaping fabric that I needed to like pull up. And so I pulled up all the landscaping fabric, and it was great to see like all the old worm trails and stuff. That there was a lot of worms, but you know, it had gotten hot since I removed all the straw. I'm slamming things also. So I removed all the straw, but what was really cool is that bottom layer of straw was all compost, and there was a ton of worms and ton of bugs in it, and it was just black with tons of castings. So I went and not only inoculated the new space with all that straw, but went and took it to all of the old beds that from last year, and I reunited, and it felt great. I was like, oh man, not only do the beds just look shinier, but they're all, once it rains, all that stuff's going to go right down into the soil and just inoculate those beds. So it just brew it right up.
It's like finding gold. It's like you found gold, man. That's
Oh,
awesome.
that's exactly how I felt. I felt like a millionaire today. It was so amazing.
That is cool.
Can't spend our money on anything anyways, right? Win black gold.
I want to shout out to my buddy Skillbo1 on Instagram. I had a hangnail or something on my pinky and it was driving me insane. I just rolled this right straight on it and it feels fine now. So shout out to you, buddy.
Add that to the uses. Hangnail. Boom.
And since I really don't have anything to say on week 6 and 7 because I'm watching plants grow, I want to piggyback on another point is Spartan was saying, let your damn pots dry out. In flower, it's really crucial that you have your cycles right. Like your plants want that oxygen, that dry out cycle. You'll get a boom. If you keep them wet the entire time, your plant will not do as well, I guarantee you.
I don't like it. I like them to go no longer than I have to water it every other day. I'm actually happy if I just water it every day. If I go in there and it's like just the slightest bit of moisture on the bottom, I'm like, perfect. I want it. That's my goal, is if I could have it drink up all of that reservoir up to the second I add more water, that would be the absolute best in my opinion. Because then it allows the roots the longest period of time in the oxygen, but not long enough to like air prune them. So I really love the idea of keeping as much oxygen in the root zone as possible, and yet not limiting the amount of water that the plant needs. If that makes sense.
It's important, especially in the Frugal Forest builds, is you do not water. I don't care how dry the top, like half or more of the plant is. If the bottom of that is soaking wet still, do not water. Let it dry out.
And I want to preface that. I was going to preface that before I said this. I run Blue Mott. I don't run the SIP, but I actually find with the Blue Mott setup, it's a little bit opposite. And I've heard some of the other discussions in the podcast on the Kiss Organics guy. Tad talks about it a lot, and I have a lot of respect for the work them guys do. And they were talking about trying to run them a little drier. But the problem I've ran into when I tried to do that is anytime I came in my room and there was like one out of the row that you could almost see it instantly. There was one that was like different than the other ones. And it was almost like they would always start to fade yellow. And every single time that was like the lightest pot out of the mix. And the dripper had whatever, a worm crawled in it or a top, I've had a bunch of different problems. That's kind of why I don't do the cover crop anymore. Is some of them weeds would just, the cover crops would just grow right around the dripper and plug the whole dripper up, or their roots would be in there, or it just was a big pain in the butt. But, for me, it's kind of opposite of that. Is I want to kind of keep them at an even saturation as best as I can through that cycle.
I guess man, me and Balish are just gonna sound like broken records, but man, if you go SIP, you get that. It doesn't seem that way. You think, oh, it's gonna dry out. No, what happens is the soil is more like a sponge, especially if you're using peat. And so with the water reservoir in the bottom and the soil contacting that water, it's just by capillary action getting sucked up into that soil. But when that res is empty, that soil is still 100% fully saturated. You could probably go at least 2 days before the actual soil was actually dry. So what you're doing is I haven't done this, but I wonder if I'd ever be able to swing by one of those stupid M-bar meters from Blue Mott's. They have one you can stick right in the soil and it'll give you a reading of like a soil moisture meter.
The M-bar, it's an M-bar reading that puts out. I gotta get one too, man.
I wonder. I should.
Maggie used for literally like $150 or some shit. I don't know.
But I guess what I was trying to say is I would expect that the M-bar would not change drastically in the SIP situation. It would stay at the full saturation pretty much the entire time, because I'll notice within a 24-hour period when that res is dry and I refill it with water, that soil saturation will not evaporate 1.5 cubic feet of soil that's at full saturation. before I can get more water in it. I'm confident. So I think by what I'm doing is I'm avoiding oversaturation. But it's so easy because I just look in there, and when it's empty, I water it. So it sounds complicated, but really it's a simple process. But I think it's working in the same aspect of what you're saying, but it's less chances to fail. It takes I'm so in love with the SIP system because it takes the guessing of watering. It just lets it water itself at its own pace.
I'd
Do
agree
you
with that.
think one of those little like $10 moisture meter, like little analog ones, that just has a little red and a green zone and a yellow zone and a dial? Do you think you could just waste one of those and leave it in there for
Well, I think
try
they're
to
about
dial
it.
yourself in?
Yeah, I think most people think that. Well, I'm just gonna say they don't respect anything off of those. So
I had one hanging in my grow room for a long time.
I have one. I have one somewhere. It was one of the first things I bought when I was learning to grow. I'm like, oh, this is cheap and it looks like it's helpful. Yeah, that thing's garbage.
You like put it under your tongue and see how wet your mouth, how bad your cotton mouth is.
The wicking / sip style really is nice. It would save people's ass right now that have to travel like far distances to their grows and whatnot. Because if I didn't give a damn about training or doing pest inspection or any of that fine tuning, I literally can just go to my grow and water once every couple weeks, and that's all I'd have to do.
Yeah, I just transplanted those ones for the grow off in the earth box, and it's almost a week now, and I guess by the time they're seeing it, it's more, but I haven't watered it yet. You know what I mean? I fill it with 2 gallons. That's what it takes when you initially do your transplant, but I probably won't touch it for another week or so yet. So I have to add. I really enjoy that.
Are you running the top? Are you running the top on it too?
Yeah.
And do you have anything underneath there, like a bokashi or anything?
Yeah, I run the Grow Kashi from out west or whatever.
Oh, nice. That's gonna be awesome, man.
I do just like he said, man. Just that some compost or manure or whatever. I use the ancient forest instead of the booze blend, but it's just not a.
I like using ancient forest also. I'd like to do that.
Well, I think it encourages more of a fungal type than necessarily. And I don't know how true that is, but just for me personally, that's how I feel it. There's some wood chips in there and different things, and it's pretty nice. I like it.
I saw John Kohler recommend it one time, and I've since then, I think and I use it in my outdoor, as one of my starter like composts and things when I'm like inoculating beds, and I just sprinkle it. I never, because the bags are small, they're cheap. They're like $8 to $10 a bag, or maybe $13 a bag, or something like that. You can get them for cheap, but they don't go a long ways when you're talking about hundreds of square feet of a outdoor garden. That's where I use them. But they grow great cannabis in it. I love it. I'll like make fabric pots, starter pots with it, that and a little bit of cocoa mixed up, man. Great stuff. It's good compost.
Okay,
Do
now
you know much about it? Like what it's made out of or anything? Have you
Yeah,
looked into it?
to my knowledge, it's from Alaska, and they were basically when they were doing construction out there, roads, whatever, they were just like moving this, precious dirt or whatever. And at some point, somebody was like, we could, this is valuable. And I think so in Alaska, it's, I'm going to get it wrong, Wasilla, maybe. Matanuska Valley is kind of like, so Matanuska Thunderfuck is the one everybody knows from there, or Alaskan Thunderfuck. But that Matanuska Valley is where like it's glacial runoff right there, and that's where like all them guys grow the giant vegetables and shit like that too. So it's kind of, I guess that's my understanding of it, is it's that kind of a topsoil, but it's just in areas they were doing construction and removing it anyway.
Jeez, talk about a dream like water source, glacial runoff. I'm freaking jealous.
I want to drink it.
Right?
Sounds like
Definitely heavy minerally taste.
Shiny
I went up there
blue.
and drank it, and it's like it was probably bear piss for all I fucking know. I don't know.
Fuck
It was
yes.
All
bad.
good stuff.
I could
Drink it
see the
more.
glacier, and I drank the water, so that's what I could say.
And the
I
bag
wanna
won't break
swim
your
in it.
back. It's good stuff, man. I dig it. I
I
like
want to bring up a controversial subject here now. I kind of had an epiphany the other day, and I just wanted to throw it out there and see what you guys think. And it's probably going to be crazy, but so flushing. Dude Rose the other day brought up how, well, at least Sean, well, not well, Guru said that he believed that you shouldn't flush, and there's no reason for you to flush. And then Scotty brought up a study by, I believe it was a nutrient company, I believe, or maybe it was High Times. Either way, they did a blind taste test, and everybody picked the non-flushed weed, which surprises the shit out of me, but that's apparently what was happening. And they were explaining that when you flush a plant and it senesces, or not senesces, I guess they could say starves, when it starts turning yellow, they think that with those deficiencies, you hurt secondary metabolite production. You know, a plant doesn't have extra resources to be able to do those things. So then I thought to myself, and I was kind of having, a high moment, and that's when things kind of click in my head. And I said, well, I wonder if that's why in an organic situation, generally speaking, most people would agree that, you get a little bit more of a flavor pop when you go through an organic situation over a synthetic situation. I wonder if that's in the case that if you're growing synthetically and then you flush excessively at the end, you're not getting that secondary metabolites, whereas an organic situation, you can't really flush out the microbes. They're attaching themselves around there, and they're still breaking down nutrition that's available to the plant all the way up to the point to where you cut the fucker down. So you're not flushing organics, so the plant's able to uptake all of these things and able to continue to process further down those, secondary metabolites and beyond into cannabinoids and who knows what else. I just thought maybe that's a possibility of explains that kind of phenomenon, is that we're not really flushing, and if people didn't flush in hydroponics, I wonder if they could somehow close that gap.
So I just want to say this real quick, but advancing eco-agriculture, John Kemp talked about this in corn. And he was saying that there was a difference in proper senescing to the plant starving at the end of the year. And then they were describing in corn where the corn ear and all the kernels will be dry and still, like they're ready to go and be harvested totally dry, while the stalk still has quite a bit of juice going through it. So when the combine is going through and it's cutting this corn down, like it's spewing all this like plant juice out the sides because there's still that much life going on inside the stalks. And that was he was tying that to the availability of boron for finishing, so that like I don't know, the way he described it was boron plays a role in moving the sugars out into the finishing through, you know what I mean, for proper synthesis.
But what's the point that he's trying to make there? Is he trying to say that the plant should have been left longer until it dried out? Or is he saying that it was overfed and it should have senesced quicker?
No. He's saying that was the proper harvest time, proper senescence. It's just that was the difference the farmers noticed, because they look at the ear and the kernel and that's ready to go. They don't care about the stalk, So usually by the time the ear and the kernel's ready to go, the stalk's all dried up too. They don't see the juices still flying out. And that was the point he was making, is that was because the plant was still had a proper senescence. It was everything it needed was still available. You know what I mean? That was like your high bricks or whatever.
I'm glad you both kind of brought that up, but like Spartan, I used to not really do much flushing. I used to kind of just run perpetually, and like I said, like I would do the same as I do now. Like every couple of weeks, my reservoir runs out of water, and I just kind of give it a couple of days before I fill it back up. And usually around that time, I'd give it like the last couple of days before harvest or something. I would let it run a little extra longer or something.
Yeah, but I imagine you must be watering at a pretty low ppm because
Low
you
ppm
obviously don't keep.
always.
Yeah, see, so I bet you that's a way to close that gap. I bet that approach where you're just giving it a little bit, you're giving it little sips. Even at the
Yep.
end, it's got whatever it needs available to it, but it doesn't have too much. And I bet you
a,
that's
a big reason that I flush now is because it's like industry standard to flush. You know, if you talk about not flushing, people can go, you didn't flush your plants. You know what I mean? But I'm going to agree with better results, better flavor, better everything for the times that I would just let everything ride full term and I would let the plant senescence away.
see
Did I use that
for
word right?
Sinus, yeah. For us, I mean, even at work, even at mechanical, we do flush. I mean, but at that level, think about the money savings. I mean, so that's a huge factor right there. That's
But
not really a factor so much in a
I
home
see
grow.
things like this plant should be a little bit greener right now. This plant's just a little bit too yellow. You know what I mean? Like a little bit too early, a little bit, you know, if I start flushing 2 weeks before, like the plants almost seem like they don't senesce, like they just prematurely die, you know?
Yeah,
I
yeah, you
want
don't
that.
want that. You don't
I
want
don't
that at
want
all.
that.
No. And I'll
So
tell you what, at home, I'm an organic grower, so I'm not really. I mean, I'm watering in water, but I'm not flushing anything. You know what
Yeah,
I
and when
mean?
you're organic, like you're always just it should be water or tea or
Yeah.
something, you know what I
So
mean? So you're
yeah,
always
so
technically like flushing, you know?
yeah, but I don't have any issues as it being harsh unless it's. I think that would be a more of a moisture content issue at that point.
And
Um,
again, like
but then
force
again,
feeding your plant, like I don't believe
yeah,
that
but then
plants
again,
get force fed, you know, like they're gonna take up what they want and they're gonna not take up at the end. Like you could have an EC, you could have a root zone with like I think like 2000 EC, and the plant's gonna be like, I don't want that. I want to die, so I'm not gonna drink, I'm not gonna feed, I'm gonna flush my, I'm gonna do what I want to do. Yeah, that's how I kind of look at it.
but
They
I'll
could
tell
be
you
in
what,
there, and
when
I
I
don't know if it's hot.
at the same
Go ahead,
time when
man.
I
Sorry.
grew, I'm sorry, I was just saying at the same time I'm conflicted because when I grew in cocoa at home, if I didn't flush, it tasted like shit, and when I did flush, it tasted better. I mean, it seemed like it burned better, and it definitely had a better ash color, and all of those things were true. But I don't know how to explain it other than it was some kind of a stress response or something.
See, that's what I mean. Like I've had the opposite. Like and maybe it's a Jax thing. Maybe it's a different because I've just been running with Jax for so long. That's the only reason I can talk on it. Like I haven't used GH in 7 years or something. I've only been using Jax. So, um, but yeah, like I never really flushed. I would always keep it like 800 ppm though. I never really went above like 800 ppm. I went up to like 1200 for a little while without CO2 and doing hella runoff. But that was kind of the flush about that. I would flush, you know. I started flushing just after that. Go ahead, Smiley. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I think the difference there though is like so we've always talked about the pot size being like the battery for the plant. Well, the idea behind that is that microbial, the whole colony there, fungus, you know, all of it, right? Bacteria, protists, all of it. The whole micro rhizosphere there is holding nutrient in its bodies and in its cells and in itself. You know what I'm saying? So whether the plant wants it or not, it doesn't have to leave the soil or be, you know, I mean, it's in those bodies anyway. So that's where the plant, I think, truly has the option to just uptake what it wants. And like what you were saying, Red, it's kind of true in that sense. But I think, you know, like when you look at EC, you gotta remember that it's only measuring the salt content. It's like certain things, it doesn't necessarily tell you the ratios of everything. You know what I'm saying? Like you can have a really high potassium and that'll raise your EC really quick. You know what I mean? Like certain things will adjust it really fast, other things don't. So I don't know. I guess that to me is the difference is that in the water that you're feeding it hydroponically, if the plant's going to uptake and it's going to drink, it kind of has to take some of that stuff in. Where in the soil, it doesn't necessarily have to, like in a living system like that. So, I don't know.
I believe it's such a complex system that we're not even grasping how to properly do this yet. So the only correct way to do it would be through a regenerative system, depending on the intelligence of the rhizosphere in the plant. But that being said, my experience in like synthetics or hydroponics or whatever, flushing did improve the taste myself. Even say like with running nectar line, like running calcium all the way until harvest, that actually improved weight and taste in a hydroponic environment, stuff like that. Like I think the key thing when it comes to flushing, even in organics, that's why I don't really like to throw anything in, and I'm just now experimenting at week 3 or 4 with the potash, is I don't want any kind of instant available nutrition available to the roots. Like at that point, I'm scared that maybe it'll take up too much B12 or whatever, and I'll get a snack crackle pop, some shit like that. Like I think that's the key in avoiding, like, maybe the plant can take up stuff all the way to the end in a synthetic environment, but I don't think we have the technology or the know-how to do that correctly yet.
In my mind, I'm thinking about like in the ground, and like you can't flush the minerals out of the ground, like the sand, the silt, the clay, it's there, and like no amount of rain or whatever is gonna remove it from the roots. I don't know if do the nematodes, do the protozoa, bacteria, does that stuff just eventually senesce off itself? Make it so that it's no longer available. Like so in my mind, like having some kind of a EC available in the root zone, whether it be something, is no different than having some kind of mineral content and allowing the plant to kind of do its way of dying. Now, I agree with a high EC. I misspoke when I said 2000 ppm or something. That's a high EC. You know what I mean? Like I don't get that high at all in my. I'm at 650 most of the time through flower. But like I'll check runoff and it'll be around 1400, and then I'm scared, and then I want to drop it. But like I think like a 3 to 4 to 500 ppm, like from start to finish, like stable root zone. I mean, I don't think that there's anything. I think that would give the same type of flavor. I don't know. I've never experimented with, like I said, like it's just industry standard to flush. I just feel like I think that the bag appeal might even be better. And I don't think that I would sacrifice flavor if I continued a 250 ppm. Like I'm talking like levels that just keep the plant alive, not levels where I'm pushing anything at all. I've experimented with leaving a little bit of magnesium sulfate in the res, like 150 ppm, a gram per gallon ratio, if you will, about 100 ppm worth. Not even a decimal on the EC scale,
I think
But
honestly, this is in my head. I figured out as you're talking there, Red, and it was clicking in my head. I was thinking, at Mitten Canico, we take most of our strains a lot longer than most people do. So we are feeding our plants longer. We're feeding our plants when most people are flushing their plants. So when we get to our flush, the plant's already senescing on its own anyway. It's already pretty much stopped eating. We start to flush and we have to wait a whole day or maybe sometimes 2 days before it dries out again, depending on, conditions. And so maybe just the fact that we're feeding them for longer, and that's what's getting the good results for us, is that we can do actually both. We can feed them and then flush them for a little bit at the end.
I'd like taking plants full term. I think that's a great way to go. I'd like to do that too. Like when the plant's finally done growing, then I start to flush it down. Then I'm ready.
That's where we're at right now, is week 8, 9. If you want to hit on that, the finishing off.
Before we do that, I'm gonna try to share a screen and tell me if it works. But I want to show this chart. I don't know if you guys heard of Mulder's chart, but this is something that I've just kind of added to my brain, which helps a lot. What do I have to hit? Oh, what I want to share, and then hit the button. All right, this is Mulder's chart. Can you guys see this? It's a circle.
Yep.
All right, where you see the different minerals on the outside, where they're connected by lines, the ones that have the arrows that are pointing towards each other and they're green. Like, for example, look at the phosphorus. This is what I wanted to warn for you, abolished. When you start putting a lot of phosphorus in, you could lock out calcium. when you have these arrows pointing together like this, that means that if you overdo it with one, they're antagonists. Too much of one will lock out the other. So as soon as you start saying, or no, you're not talking about phosphorus, are you? Oh, you're talking about, well, anyways,
Potassium, yeah.
Potassium, but
I
whatever.
get what you're saying.
But this is the same thing. Always when you're adding, like you want to give it a boost, especially I always think for bloom boosters, if you're ever adding anything, consult Mulder's chart to make sure that if I overdo it, what could I be locking out? Or if you got a really weird deficiency, I always like to look at this for deficiencies, say what mineral can lock it out before I look at anything else, because that's usually the hardest thing to figure out, when it's a mineral locking out another mineral. So it's good to get this, and shout out to Dude Grows, that's where I learned this from. But that's just called Mulder's chart. I just Google that and you can pull it up. I should print that out though and just have it hanging somewhere.
That's a useful one.
Yeah, I got it in a similar chart, but it's a little harder to read, where it's like it shows the list of the nutrients, and then like on the other side it says, so if these, if you think nitrogen's in excess, this, and this will be locked out. But I like that chart a little better. It seems just to kind of flow a little better in your brain. I don't know.
Yeah, I really like
how they all interweb with each other too,
Yep.
I finally realized I was running too hot of an EC when my calcium kept locking out on me. I realized I was really running too high of an EC, or letting my not giving it enough feeding. My pots were getting a little too dry, which in turn boosts your EC, which in turn will give you what looks like a potassium deficiency. Like, I'll show you more potassium. So you raise your EC, you lock out your calcium, and it just gets worse. You're like, oh no, you had a calcium deficiency in the first place. You're already too high. Check your runoff next time. And that's what you got to check your runoff by week 3. Okay, this is how you avoid your calcium deficiency. Check your runoff by week 3, and then check it by week 5.
But yeah, as far we got way off topic. But as far as the last weeks of flower, all I'm doing is, if a leaf is dying, if it's over 75% shitty looking, I'm just picking those off, because I figure they're not really helping the plant too much at that point. But if I can get them off of there, maybe a little more light down below that, whatever that's blocking, is going to be more helpful. So that's about the only thing I do these last weeks until harvest.
Nope. Do you guys bring in a sugar source at all? Carbohydrate or anything?
No.
I would if I wasn't lazy.
A lot of guys will bring in like a molasses or something in towards the flush. I've heard of guys running honey and some different things too. So I do mess around with some of that stuff. I do like to add some powdered fruit juices to the mix, and this is just kind of my own little flair. I've tried on a few things, but
Like Kool-Aid.
it is kind of, man. I don't know. It's but like.
All right, I just want to push back a little. I just want to push back a little bit, man. I just want to push back a little bit and just say this is how I look at it, and this is just my theory on why I don't want to do that. Is because to me, is when you add sugars into your soil, you're going to get a nutrient explosion. Why? Because you're going to get a bloom of some kind of microbe to consume that sugar. The plant's not going to uptake too much of that. So it's going to be a huge explosion of microbes, which are going to be a huge source of nutrition for the plant, which you'd think would be a good thing. But at the end of the life cycle, that's not what we're trying to do. So that's why I don't really like to do a sugar source at the end, man. If I was going to do that, I'd be doing that if I was trying to boost it in some way, like I thought it was lagging behind or something. That's when I'd add some kind of sugar source. And hell, you can do that in a compost tea too, if you want to fuck around with that too. But either way, yeah, I would be careful with the sugars. Just all the stuff I'm hearing about sugars and stuff, it seems like it's not a super awesome thing, especially at the end, because it's just going to give you the big quick burst, almost like in our bodies.
Yeah, I guess I'm not thinking at the end. I don't know. I'm a little stoned, but
I used to
nobody
get.
had mentioned it throughout the run. You know what I mean? It was just something I thought of that nobody had mentioned it. So.
Yeah, I understand why it wouldn't be like beneficial, but at the same time, like when I did it, I seen positive results in the buds, like they would get super frosty and fragrant. So if I could bring in a sugar source at the end, if I could ever land, say maybe a rep deal or a sponsorship with Nectar for the Gods, is their actual sugar source is Aphrodite's Extraction. They actually take a hit on the cost on that. It costs them more to make it than what they charge for it. It's like their way to get back to their customers. And that stuff is really, really high quality sugar source. It's a super, super simple sugar, so it's not like a long chain like molasses where it's going to bind up stuff. Like everything just takes it up right away, eats it right up.
It's in the same form of sugar as what's found in the plant. I don't remember if that's sucrose or glucose. I forget, but whatever form of sugar it's that same form of sugar.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Since we're in the last 2 weeks, and I'm sitting here thinking about it. My plants don't get like flushed for 2 weeks straight. I don't like flush my plants like that first day. I just lower my EC. I start like halving off my res and stop adding nutrients to it. It slowly goes down to 0, and then I'm sure that there's still a buildup of salts and stuff, nutrients in the whatever the plants are just going to slowly use it up, and then eventually it's going to be down to 0. I want to see my runoff hit 0. But let's say that I'm doing industry standard. Let's say I'm flushing that last 2 weeks, hydroponics. I'm not worried about my pH because I'm not worried about nutrition uptake. I'm dimming my lights down to 70%. The closer I get to harvest, 60%. I'm getting more of a red spectrum by doing so with my HPS. I'm also defoliating a lot off the internal leaves because, like I said, I'm not feeding, so I don't expect there to be, I don't really care if there's a lot of photosynthesis really going on. I'm really just senescing my plants. I want to use that word again because I love it so much. And yeah, I mean, there's not a lot going on. I'm really trying to defoliate as much as I can, though, because I want to make sure my humidity is staying down. I'm still staying in between 65 and 70% humidity. I'm still keeping all the fans going, and I'm probably going to lower my CO2, but I run a perpetual, so I don't really lower my CO2. It just still stays stable, but in a perfect world, I would drop my CO2 back down to probably ambient, because I've lowered my lights, I've lowered my EC, I'm not photosynthesizing, I'm just wasting money again by all the CO2 in the air. So since I am running perpetual, I need it, but perfect world. So, and I'm gonna do the flush. So that's probably how I would do perfect world hydroponics.
Those are all good points. I agree with everything you said too. The only thing I would add too is for me, my lighting, I do with my Raging Kush. I'm fucking with that. I love it. At the end, I reduced it to 80% for the last 2 weeks. That was the total intensity, and then I also brought down the red. I stepped it down. I kept stepping the red down, so it was just getting mostly blue and whites. And by the last week, I completely eliminated the red for the final week, so I had 0 red. And all that stuff is, all but one of them is hanging. One's going to be harvested soon. It's just sitting in the dark right now.
Damn it. Back to the perfect world scaffolding that I can get over my canopy and replace with everything with metal halides again.
Actually, and right here at week 8 is say where I take my strains. Like other strains will be finishing off, in the 60s or whatnot. But I'll go ahead and flip it to like 24 hours or even 18. It depends on what I'm feeling like. And I'll just let my sour melon finish off while I'm starting veg in there with some other plants. Because you're in the last trimester at that point. There's no new root tip growth. Without new root tip growth, you can't get any kind of weird veg growth. So that gives you somewhere around like 14 to 21 days at that point to just keep it going with the light and finish off your plant. And who can say, it might bring out a little more flavor and weight out of it too, because you're getting more hours of light. I've just been doing it so long with the sour malt. Like I literally started doing it after the first run. I can't tell you if it's better or not for it.
What day do you take your sour milling then?
I'd like to take it if I could. I'd take it at 70. But like I said, it could finish anywhere. I think you could take that thing probably to 90, Spartan, if you wanted to. It's just going to keep shooting white hairs. It's going to confuse you. Like, you got to get in there and look at that damn thing.
I'm on day 72.
Yeah, I guarantee you have a bunch of amber all over that thing, even though you got white hairs just shooting up like crazy.
I might have to take a look at
Forever
it.
Fox Taylor.
Yeah.
You should see. I'm gonna have to take some
Super
pictures.
secure.
I'll take a little video or take some pictures or something. I'll have to do that. I'll have to get in there and it's pretty funny. It's just like the little plant that could. It's just like 2 stems, but all of a sudden these giant fucking, I don't know, at least pop cans.
Cantaloupes on
Yeah.
top.
I'm
But
like,
I'm
all right,
thinking-
sweet. That's gonna be so easy to trim.
I've taken her
Look
as
like
early
stick
at 60,
figures.
and it was great smoke then. So, like, you're already in. You're already good right now. So whenever you want to do it.
Oh, okay. I'll cut her when she says she's ready. I'll just wait for her to tell me.
I can't wait to see the size of those spears. You're going to have to take a picture. That'd be your Spartan spear.
I will say if you're a beginner and you're kind of like, these have been discussions on like when to pick and some of that stuff. But from my experience, you're better off going for like default and for almost longer than what you think than pulling than. So I would be worried about pulling too early versus being worried about pulling it too late, or if that makes more sense, I guess.
If you have that luxury, I couldn't agree more. I would, when people ask me how many weeks does this run, I'd say, well, when you think it's ready, give it another week, and that's always a good rule of thumb. It's like, it seems like right when I'm thinking it's like, okay, I would harvest it right here. If I give it another week and it works in my schedule and I can do it, it always just like, it's almost like you take a rough cut gem and you just shine it up. It didn't gain any size, but it just got so pretty. I don't know how else to explain it other than that because I'm so high right now.
Well, that's just it, though. That's the experience part of it. You don't know until you try it. You know what I mean? Like somebody can tell you, hey, pull it at 8 weeks, but you know, if you want it a certain way or you like it a certain way, you may like it better at 9 weeks or 10 weeks or whatever.
It's important because I like to share my fuck ups, and one of my excuse me, one of my most recent fuck ups is I had my autoflowers, and then I had my another harvest where I had to take stuff early because of the thrips, and basically all my trim that was stacking up was all early harvest stuff. And when I went to make edibles this time, my edibles weren't very effective. My patients were saying that, like, what's going on here? Like, I ate one of my edibles I had stored in the freezer or whatever, and it, like, got me right away. The ones this time aren't doing anything. It's because none of those plants got the finish. So it's basically the edibles or that oil I just made, it's just pure medicinal. Like, it's not going to have any kind of pain relieving or psychological effect on you, psychoactive effect.
So are we on the finish? Are we on the chop? Or are we on
Yeah, the end right here.
I like to let the plant finish. I had the example of grape ape. Like, I want to say if you look it up on like Leafly or something, it's going to tell you like 55 to 60 days. It's going to tell you that basic 8 to 9 week range. I personally like to take it 70 days. And it's a little short purple indica. Like it's probably done. It's done in 55 days. Like if you want to like trichome check it and scope it, mostly milky, got a couple amber probably, but I like to just run. It's not all amber by 70 days. Like it's still got milky trichomes. Like it'll slowly finish, you know, if your temperatures are low enough and stuff like that, and through the end of flower. I keep my like air temperatures and stuff. My AC kicks on. It's like 73 degrees or something like that in there. But and that's mostly through the end of flower, and they love it, and they I'd take it like 70 days, and they plump up, and they get more purple, and they get more dense, and they get tastier. Most importantly, like more flavorful, I think. That the Great Ape's like the main example. Everything I'd like to take to full fruition. I like to like let it finish growing, finish swelling. Like the brat, I like that. Like you get that third wave swell. Like you will get like this finishing swell if you take it to like 65, 70 days on most cultivars. You know, you get that first little swell through like the first 3 weeks, and then like you get that normal swell where the plant is just like, whoa, where the hell did that come from? And then, oh, I'm done. Most people are done once they see it stop. You know, like I'm just gonna chop it. 55 to 60 days. Give it 10 more days, and then all of a sudden those bracts will swell. You know what I mean? That's what I like to see.
Yeah, the grape ape I've tried in the past from you, I was really, really impressed with like the density and just the effect and the smell. Like that's, you have a really good example of the grape ape. You do that one really well.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that is a good example. Now if I took it any sooner than what I've taken it, you know, if I took it at the just recommended day, it might be a completely different effect than everything, you know. So it might not be as medicinal. Could be more medicinal to some people. I don't know, but that's just trial and error. That's the one that has gotten the best reviews. So
I
I
think
like
that
to use.
I think that's why everybody complains about purple punch too. Is you know, I think that's just kind of a saying I've heard commonly is, oh, you know, purple punch is beautiful, but it doesn't pack any punch. But from my experience of growing it is almost, I can see where a lot of people would be deceived by it because it throws so much frost right away. But like if you really look at it close, it's just the spikes of the trichome head. So like that one's kind of, I had a lot of fun watching that one because you can almost see like those form so much sooner than the actual bulbous head of the trike head on it. You know what I'm saying? So I noticed where like certain strains you can see that bulbous head come out really quickly on the nugs. And I'm talking, you know what I mean, last 2 weeks of flower or whatever type thing. But in that one it seems like the longer you want to take it, the more potency you're going to get because you're going to get more of those kind of full bulbous trike heads, I think. And I think that might be why that has such a rumor like that because I don't know, I grow it and nobody complains about it. So
A lot of people rush. Just be patient. So patience is a wonderful thing to have as a gardener.
If you don't have it, spend a lot of time searching for those strains that finish in at least 60 or they're always ready-ish in 60. That way you can keep that propagation train going. I'm bad about it. I like to take everything in 60, like even when I know it could get another ounce or whatever. If I go another 10, I won't do it most of the time because I'm just so hung up on what I believe it was either Medicrop or Mr. Tight said a couple of years ago or whatever about how if you take everything in 60, you basically get in like 1 or 2 more harvests a year. And I'm always trying to keep up my patient demand. Like I can't. I need a bigger spot. Honestly, my patients have serious needs. So I'm always trying to keep up. So I can't really run stuff 80 days sometimes when it needs to.
No, you're totally right. Like the numbers are like 5.6 at 63 days, and then they're like 6.2 harvest a year if you run 60 days. You have to be dead on your numbers, and you have to transplant on the day. See, as soon as I ended up, and I figured out my numbers, I had to be like, to stay at 60 days, I have to have a crop going every 15 days. I have to flip four on the perpetual, right? And I can pull every 15 days, and I get a 60-day window. I get 6 crops, 6.3 crops a year, whatever the numbers are. Don't quote me on those decimals. You're totally right. Once I fell off that like a couple of times, and I never like filled up my rooms to their full potential, and have been running like a couple lights off here, a couple lights off there. I started getting into this mode where I just started letting the plants do the driving and things like that. And it turned into such, like, because I used to be incredibly anxious about staying on schedule, keeping everything done, get, like, once the plants were home and like I had to get them trimmed up. If I didn't have them trimmed up and done, like, it was going to go bad and all this other stuff. But once I learned that, like, if I take out like a lot of the, I don't know, like it's a little easier to streamline because I manage a larger garden with one person, and I learned to just play towards my demand, basically. So like that's why I don't I trim to orders and things like that. I try not to like be overwhelmed in one single task, and then harvesting can be one of those tasks. Staying on date, and I agree, dude, because I've, like I said it before we started this thing, I've microwaved weed before. Sometimes you just have to pluck your weed. You know what I mean? You have to get it. And I microwaved it for my own personal because I didn't want to go buy a dime bag that day. You know what I mean? And but no, you know, if you have to feed a patient, you have to chop your plants on that 60-day mark. Fortunately, I have a larger garden, so I have like the back stock that I'm able to work with, and I'm able to uh, uh not to go any further, but like with a larger garden, I'm able to play with the demand a little bit easier. Only having like 5 patients to work with, you know, I'm able to like run my plants to fruition, keep a couple lights shut off, utilize my energy bills and utility bills to my advantage and things like that, and try to juggle the demand a little better and save myself like the back-breaking hassle of I was kicking my own ass for like 3 years. You know what I mean? Just overly stressed out about it. And then I was like, you know what? I have all this weed sitting around and it's not even going anywhere. I was stressed out for nothing. I need to like revert my energy onto something else.
I think just what you just described is the main benefit of why I continue to run perpetually, and that just breaks your harvest up. You know what I mean? Instead of using that same space to grow and fill out and harvest all at once and have to do all that work all at once, just break it up by light and have them on different cycles. And then so you have maybe, you know, you might have to take down a couple plants a week, or you might have to take down a light, you know, a month, or whatever the hell the system is. You're not taking down the whole damn room all at once. It helps. You can have a smaller dry room so that, you know, because you're not putting as many plants in it. It just helps all the way around in those kind of logistics.
Yeah,
Now,
and that's it too. Oh, go ahead, Smiley.
Oh.
I rambled. Go ahead, man.
yeah, do you guys select your genetics for that too? So what I mean by that is like when I'm running, you know, a different, like I just cracked some seeds and I'm deciding if I want to move them out there, because if I harvest that day 60, like I like to do in my cycle normally, then it's too early for them. But if I go over 63 days, that's kind of what I ran the schedule for, you know what I'm saying? So like that's part of how I decide what ones I'm gonna run too, is like, will they fit in my cycle? Do they do well when I gotta pull them? Because you know what window you're set. You know what I mean? Whenever you're building that, you know what number of weeks you're gonna plan that.
That's exactly another reason I loosened up my outlook on it, was because I was limiting myself on so many cultivars. Now, I'm not going to run a 20-week sativa. It's not going to work. It's not going to fit. It's not going to fit in my demand. I'm not going to run a 12 or a 10-week. Maybe I run a 10-week because I run grape ape 10 weeks. I mean, whatever. 10 weeks to me isn't anything. But like,
That's almost
you know,
the average now.
yeah, and that's like the average. I like to do like 70. Like I'd like to take, like, let's say I can run a crop, do a flip and everything, because again, being one person, I like to be the only person. I like to keep it, you know, I'm not really supposed to have anybody else in my gardens, right? So I do all my harvesting and everything. Sometimes it takes me 3 days to run a harvest. Sometimes it takes me 2-3 days to like clean up the room. Next thing you know, I'm a week out, you know, just time management. You know, you got all these other crops to take care of and things like that. So if it's a week between the first day that I start to harvest until my room's clean and I can actually get more plants in there, like you're setting yourself back, you're at 77, 80 days, you're at like 4.9 harvests a year. I mean, yeah, but fortunately I'm able to have a bigger garden and play with that and lessen like the stress load. Now, if I, like Spartan said, if I crammed and ran like one of those rooms at a time, I could probably get it nailed out. I could probably hire in some trimmers and do some stuff and try, or I could also have a higher potential to like mold up my drying space or something. You know what I mean? So I could also have a higher potential in my room molding because I'm not retrofitted with a nice heavy duty dehumidifier. So I'm going to be better. So like I've also managed my rooms to work with environment a little bit better and things like that. And so I think that not to take the rabbit hole any further, but don't overstress yourself on your manage your plant count and things like that. The way that you're able to, you know, the way that you're able to stay efficient and whatever works for you, so that you don't kill your plants. Basically, you know, you're able to have the best medicine available, and not, you know, it's best to grow a bunch of quality product than like an overabundance of like crap product, in my opinion. You know what I mean?
That's an interesting and important question, really. I mean, if I was growing strictly for myself, I would go for strains that are like 70 plus because I enjoy flavorful sativas. But because I'm a caregiver, I won't even really look at anything that says 70 plus on the back. Like, and if you tell me you got something that's pretty much done, always like ripe in 56, I get a little chubby. But I wanted
I'd say
to
grow
go.
grape ape. If you wanted to stick at 60 days or something, grow grape ape. You're, you know, especially if you have a shorter, ceiling height. Ceiling height is your limiting factor. Grow grape ape. That thing doesn't stretch at all once it goes in flower. You got to over veg it a little bit further, but that's what I suggest. If you want to stay on that 60-day line, stick yourself with something that's like in the indica range. You know, short, squat.
Yeah, and Grape Ape's actually one of the there's one or two other ones, but as like strains that go purple, Grape Ape's one of the only ones I really like. It keeps a good flavor. It doesn't get that spiciness that I find in a lot of purples.
It'll actually like make me shake my leg. You know, it actually gives me a little slap to the speed up initially. You know, sometimes I get restless just trimming it, and there's something to do with that terpene. I've gotten like anxious and restless trimming it. I've had to like get up, go walk around the house only with when I'm trimming grape ape. It's strange. It's very strange.
And I wanted to piggyback on your, or maybe everybody else has got a funny story on how they like quick dried cannabis or a funny way of drying it. But uh, I used to use my actual like Xbox One, believe it or not, and it had a really low fan and a really low heat, kind of similar to what we use with our herbs now. And I really would get a similar like taste and finish to my buds as my herbs now. So that's why I always thought it was funny when I got that thing that I could do it on a bigger scale. But yeah, whenever I would need cannabis back in the day, especially if I was gaming, because the game it would kick it up the fan a little bit more and the heat, that stuff would be ready to smoke in like a day.
That's awesome.
I love
I've only ever slow dried cannabis, so I don't have any funny stories. I fucked it up and slow dried it too much and molded it out, but I've only ever slow dried it.
I crave my own cannabis that bad that like even if I have like some completely ready stuff from like dispensary or a friend or whatever, like I'll smoke mine pretty much right off the stick.
Yeah, I just I'll smoke it off the stick, but I'll still slow dry it as I smoke it off the stick.
Dude, one
You
of
know
my
what I mean?
favorite things to do, I do it almost every time I'm drying something, is if it's like newer, or I haven't smoked it in a really long time. I don't care if it's 3 days dry. It's like usually sometimes still wet. I can't wait to just pick it off the stem and just you're pinching it, and then it's getting wetter in your fingers. It's turning into a sponge. You're like, fuck, am I even gonna be able to? Yes, I'm gonna like this, and it still tastes like grass, but you get that essence of it. And you're like, yes, I can't believe I haven't smoked this in so long, and it's not dried in a microwave.
If I get a little bud that I gotta trim off or it falls off when I'm moving or whatever, I'll just take and throw it on my desk and just let it dry out in the regular air for a day or two, and then grind that bitch up and smoke it. I'll do that all day long. I guess that's one way is quick drying.
That's what I
It
was
dries
gonna
so much faster.
I'll
Leaving it
take
out for
all
a
the
day.
small buds and throw them on a drying rack in the same room. But because I hang with the stem attached to it, the bud, you know what I mean, the main buds are going to take longer, but those will usually dry up pretty quick on that rack. And that, yeah, I mean, a 5 day window, 4 or 5 days, you can roll up, get a flavor. check of it.
Have you guys ever cracked like a stem, like latent flour or whatever, and then go in there, say like a couple days later or whatever, and that shit's dry, and then take it out there and smoke it because you broke it off? Like, I've done that a few times. That's tasty too.
Is it? I've never smoked it. I've always thrown it in the worm bin, so I don't know.
No, it's dry. Like it breaks up into dust, but I mean it's smokable.
Dusty weed.
That's like bone dry.
Yeah, usually when I see that, they're brown and kind of nasty, burn up by the light too. But I don't know. I guess if you catch it in time, it's the right thing.
So, a nice little frugal way that I used to dry. Let's say, you know, it's the one plant days. I'm on the 60-day cycle, and I'm cranking out 6 crops a year. I would dry in these little cardboard boxes. Working in the service industry and stuff, I had access to chicken wing boxes that were about 2 feet by about 1 foot. I'd lay them suckers. I'd turn them into a little closet, drill some holes in them, run a fishing wire through them, and you know, you dry about a good 2 ounces in the box. You know, string them through. Some thread, doing thread the needle.
Dude, I find cardboard to be an excellent way to cure. Like I was always super, super happy with cardboard and the brown paper bags, just letting that sit in a cold room. Like
I was just going to say brown paper bag.
Yeah.
Brown paper bag I still use to this day to do all my trim. So as I trim, when I'm done trimming, I dump the trim into brown paper bags, and that's cured in those brown paper bags.
I do lawn bags for all my old leaf scraps, which are lawn bags are giant paper bags. And then those I let my extremely wet green leaf, you know, material, whatever, dry in there. And then I have like the dry carbon material compost when I'm ready, when I need it, you know, or it'll just turn to, you know, do its molding or whatever in the bag and compost it in the bag. And the whole bag's biodegradable. So I can just go throw the whole bag out in a pit if I wanted to.
That's what we do at Mint and Co. I mean, we buy those bags all the time, and that's what we do with all of all the defoliation. We fill those up, we throw them out in the shed, and then when to dispose of them, we have the local tree trimming guys come out, and we throw them in the grinder, and we got to mix them with dirt balls to make sure that, root balls to make sure that they're unusable. And it's really cool. It works great.
Somebody's getting some good compost, man. Somebody's getting some really good compost. I'd like to find out who that tree company is.
Yeah,
compost from them. Seriously.
You should check that out, Spartan, and see if they'll deliver that right to your house.
That's a good idea. I'm going to have to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, otherwise I dry in an open air environment. I try to get 2 weeks out of it if I can. If I can maintain my humidity between 55 and 60%. Try to dry it for a good couple weeks, and by then it's off to the cure bins. You know, ideally I'd like just cure it on the rack. Cure it on the rack, trim it as I go. If I can just keep the humidity at 55, 60%, there's no reason not to. That's the ideal humidity I want to keep it at in the bucket. And if it gets below that and it's too crispy, I like to re-humidify it. And if it gets, I don't ever let it get too, if it gets too wet, it's turning into mold and going in the garbage can. So it's all about keeping it drier than it really needs to be. And then when I'm ready for it, I add a little bit of humidity to the container or to the room and get it back to where I need it and process it from there.
Yeah, I prefer the traditional 2-week hang dry, but I also have experience with, quite a bit of experience with the herbs now, if people are using those. Myself, instead of doing a full-on wet trim and getting every little bit that you can in those things, if you can't fit your whole plant in there, don't fit the whole plant in there. But I like to try and keep the buds and if I have straight up colas, I like to keep the straight colas in there and run the machine like that, with trying to do minimal amount of wet trimming, because what I've learned personally from wet trimming with hang dry methods and stuff like that is it fucks up your taste. Just to me, like you're making your plant bleed chlorophyll all over your trichomes and stuff's drying up. You can't tell me that's not oxidizing certain trichs or affecting the flavor. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why I'd recommend minimal wet trimming in that. But you can if you do it right, you can fit, I'd say, an easy quarter pound inside those things, just the regular 8-try setup without breaking it down too much. If you break it down, you can fit a half pound on there, but I don't say ever break it down that much. But 3 days, you're done, and that hurts now, or sometimes less. About 50 hours minimum, some strains will be going in the jar.
So some guys like I like to hang mine, and a lot of times guys will recommend that 60-degree, 60% humidity, and that's the rule of thumb that I tried to use. But some of the, I guess, the tweak I've done to it a little, just from experience on it, or my preferences. So the first day that they're hanging, like when they're, the leaves are still standing straight out, so to speak, on the plant, I try to run down to around like a 50-55% humidity. So I get my dehumidifier set lower, and then I'm looking to see those leaves fold over. And like, I just feel like trying to, like, initially when there's a majority amount of moisture coming off the plant, I'm trying to lower that moisture activity inside the plant in a faster way. And then towards the end, I'm trying to, so like after that first day, I'm trying to keep it around that 58 to 60%. And I know it cuts a few days off from that normal 2-week mark, so it's more of a 10-day mark that way. But it's just kind of what I found to be a little better.
And another
So-
thing for me is I have to consider biomass. So I know how big my dry room is, and I know how many plants I'm trying to squeeze in there. A lot of times, if it's multiple plants, I'm actually stripping or cutting off the big fan leaves. They're not even staying on the plant. All those big fan leaves come off to be stripped off because I don't want all that moisture being added to the air to have to just be sucked out by a dehumidifier. I'm just going to eliminate that problem right from the get-go and get all those fucking fan leaves off. So situational. I'm not for wet trimming, but I will take big fan leaves off and strip the plants out real lean before I put them in there to hang if I've got a lot of plants to put in there.
And just a heads up, I don't know if anybody calibrates their drying room without a day or a night cycle, but for whatever reason, well, not for whatever reason, but your humidity will spike when you're done working in your room and you leave and shut off your lights, even though your plants are dead and hanging up on the racks. I've had it happen. Like I calibrated my everything in my room was like, I was like, okay, cool. I'm at like 55. I'm at like 60% humidity. That's cool. I'm in the room with all of my plants for hours and hours and hours, bucking leaves and doing the harvesting, and the whole time the humidity's staying stable, but I got my lights on and everything. I'm in the fluorescent lights are on me and the whole crop and everything. And I come back the next day, and over the time period that I had shut off the lights and left, the humidity spiked back up to like 80%, and I was just running like an air conditioner at the time. I didn't have a dehumidifier like on a you'd keep it at 50%. It was just on the air conditioner, but the air conditioner was going off and keeping it at 60% humidity until I shut the lights off in the room, and the whole space went up to like 80, 85, 90%. And I did have a fungus issue that round. So heads up on that first day, depending on how you calibrate, if you don't have a dehumidifier.
Yeah, I think it was more your cold temperatures got you there. You probably
It was the middle of summer. It was like 90 degrees summertime. I don't even think it was
The room
cold or anything. Well, the air conditioner was like keeping it at like 70 degrees.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? Yeah, the air conditioner was kicking off because it was warm. And I have heaters and things. I just didn't have a dehumidifier at the time. But I had an air conditioner, so I was utilizing the air conditioner. I mean, like a 5-ton air conditioner, utilizing that. And like if you look at my grow rooms, basically it was during my build out. Excuse me. So no plants or anything in the rooms. I was running out of one of my other rooms, so all I had was like the space to dry in, but I didn't have my DHU at the time. So I did have my 5-ton set up, so I was just using that and keeping my temperature set. And maybe it was the temperature getting below thermostat point when I shut the lights off or something. I don't know, but for whatever reason, I'd imagine that first day, like just like anything else, the plants are still respirating, slightly alive, slightly still trying to transpire and do their thing. Because I didn't notice it
So
after that. It was
what?
just like big, you know.
Well, pretty much through the whole cycle. But what about storage? I mean, I think everybody would pretty much agree that glass is probably the best thing to store and cure, and large scale, maybe food grade buckets or something like that. But I think glass is the universal kind of thing that most people like to use. I like my infinity jar though. That shout out to Sequence. I have it right here, a little head stash jar. I do like this.
Yeah, shout out to that awesome gift. I love my infinity jar.
I need to get back with him, man. He's supposed to be like laser etching Abolish Farms and MBGS and stuff on there. I want mine. Hurry up, Sequence.
For bulk, I would have to go with food grade ratchet style lid. Have you guys seen the ratchet style buckets? Like if I had unlimited funding, I would go with those. I think they might even self burp. I don't know. They're pretty badass.
The really cool thing about buckets is that you can turn them on their side and just roll them to if you wanted to burp or whatever, and make sure that the air got all the way through. Yep, there you go. There's a food safe right there. Smiley's got one.
These things were right at like Menards. These lids they sell at the grocery store, they were like $20 or $30 at Menards. They were like $7.99 or something. Then the buckets were like like $4 bucks, something like that. So
yeah, those ones are
like
awesome too.
Tops, you know what I mean? Like
yep. Yeah,
That's
those
an
ones
awesome,
are awesome too.
That's an awesome tip for people like when you get overwhelmed on say like a harvest and you don't want stuff drying out too long. Using those buckets to store like whole branches until you can get to them is an awesome trick.
Yep, that's exactly what I do. I buck down full plant, everything minus the giant bottom stalk. That goes to compost almost right away. Everything else goes into the bucket to cure. The stem adds a little bit of moisture. I let everything homogenize. I want that whole plant, whole like 4x4, the whole quad just homogenize with moisture.
I got these with the intent of trying to.
Those are great. How much are those things? Are those things budgetable? Like tossing a bunch of jars or?
They're pretty cheap.
They're pretty cheap. They were like, I don't know, on Amazon they were like a box of 10 or 20 of them, and it was. But yeah, it just gives you a little temp humidity. They're not real fancy. I don't even know if you can change the battery in them, but I was gonna say, like you could mount it right, like in the lid. You know what I'm saying? That was kind of my intent. I just don't know how to seal like a. I got to figure out that yet. But
got it. Source a piece of 3M sticky tape.
Yeah, I was just saying that's kind of a cool way you could actually see what was going on inside there a little bit without.
Just cut a hole that's too big and then use that great stuff spray foam, seal the hole.
Dude, great stuff. You're gonna put a little drop on it, and you're gonna get like the
half a drop. You don't even want a full basement. Drop. Only half a drop is all it's needed.
So it's gonna come after you.
Shit, this oozing all over. Like, no, fucking stop coming out. Stop expanding.
Dude, pro tip: if anybody works with great stuff ever, wear gloves. Wear gloves. This stuff will not come off your hands. Like in super glue on your beard and everything. You will have to cut off your ponytail.
Plastic everything like a murder. Fucking bottle's gonna explode on you.
I guess one more tip that I'd have for weird in the night would be try to like handle your cannabis the least amount as you can towards the end. Like if you can figure out a way to trim it up and then just put it right in the jar off the stick without you handling it in any way, that's perfect. But other than that, I think I've given everything I can say on flower really. Other than
that is a good point, man.
Rabbit holes.
The only time I try to touch the flowers is when they're being trimmed. That's it. I don't touch them when I'm bucking down the branches. They fall straight into the bucket. I don't mess with them. I hold the stalk. It's a good tip. Conserve trichomes. It's the medicine.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but on a lot of my strains, if I take the time, all of them have enough stick on the bottom or whatever, the bud, where I can hold it from there and trim to where I don't touch the bud at all and then drop it right in the jar.
Yeah,
When I
me
trim,
too.
I love to trim from the bottom up. I love to look from under the bud when I trim. Instead of looking straight up at the bud, I like looking under the bud because you can see every little leaf, and I don't know. It's just, for me, it's so much easier and faster for me to hold it that
That's
way.
a good point, man. That's strange. I've never even thought of looking at holding the bud from like the other way around, you know, because I do the same. Like I hold the bud as if it were like a pine cone in my hand or a Christmas tree, holding a giant Christmas tree, holding the giant plant in its glory, you know, right in my hand. You know, that's
You
totally
can
how
see right where
the
you got
top
cut.
up, right?
Yeah, it's just so much easier to see where your cuts are for me to just look down at, like you're looking from the trunk up on a
Right.
Christmas tree.
Right. Yep. Yep. You can
So
see them. You can get
I like
your
to just peel them with your fingers too, not even have to.
crow's feet. Is that what we call them? Crow's feet.
Yep. Just take all them crow's feet out. Yep. And I love my trim bin. I thought it's ridiculous expensive for a fucking trim bin, but I love it. So I would recommend you get one.
Yeah, dude. That I like that. Man, that's weird. I never really thought about looking at a bud from the other angle. I've done it once or twice, but yeah, man. The only time I touch the bud is like at that last little second when I'm snipping off the stem that it was attached to. You know. Hopefully with some clean gloves, because sticky gloves just tear it apart. You start pulling out more crow's feet from the inside of the bud, and then you're like, now I gotta turn this into 2 buds. Fuck, my gloves are too sticky. Shit.
I hate breaking off
Plants
buds.
dry.
I hate that.
Yeah, I can definitely like quadruple my buds per minute if I can just manhandle the buds, but that's not the way to do it.
I think I did my fastest order today. I did 60 grams in less than 25 minutes, I think, today, which was not too bad. It was almost a personal record of not just buds that were this big. You know, there was some little popcorns and stuff in there too. So I was pretty impressed with it. And it wasn't a rush job or anything. It was a slight rush job, but it wasn't like I wasn't like doing a bad job with my trimming. It was just normal trimming and stuff, you know. I would say compost your waste, you know, the sugar leaves that don't make it to the edible stash, the sugar leaves that don't make it to the processor. I would say compost the stuff that doesn't have sugar leaf on it. Compost your stems if you can, chop them down in little bits, give them to the worms, give them back to the beds, use it as a mulch if you want to, stuff like that. And then your sugar leaves and all of your bottom popcorn buds, you know, make hash, make edibles, make Simpson oil, give them to grandma.
Make sure you remove them next time.
Make sure you remove them next time. Yeah, right. Yeah, especially I guess if you got a bunch of larvae, remove it next time. Good point.
And before we get to our final like words of wisdom and whatnot, I wanted to just thank you guys for taking pretty much like the last month here of our recording and content and going back to basics to help some of the Groskies that are just starting out here. So I really appreciate it, and I know they will too.
Oh yeah, it's been fun. Maybe we can start from the bottom and get here with the outdoors soon. Now that it's springtime, might have to look into that.
Yeah, I plan on screwing around with an autoflower maybe. Let's see what happens.
Yep. I think I'm gonna start planting some of those morning star seeds myself.
Yeah, we're all doing autoflowers this year outdoors. That should be really interesting. Like we're all new to it. Yeah, we're all new to it outdoors at least.
I think within the next couple of days, I'm going to plant something, probably a microdot. I'll probably do 2. I'll probably do a microdot and I don't know. I haven't decided on the other one yet. And I'm going to put them in probably a 5-gallon, because I have a brand new I have 2 5-gallon smart pots. So I'll get them started in that and just grow them in the veg for, I don't know, until they're pretty decent size. and I'm just gonna go set them in the end of my raised bed. We got vegetables going in it. I'm just gonna set them in there and just let them sit on there and see what happens.
You know
What
it.
what day you think you're gonna bring them out? I was wanting to ask you on live the other night when you were talking about it. Like, what day you think you're gonna go outside? Like, you're
I'm
gonna
not
pop
gonna
them
go
this
outside.
week, right?
Yeah, probably pop them this week. And what are we at now? April. I'm not gonna bring them outside before May. I might even wait till. I usually, when I go outdoors, it's usually in June. Usually June 1st. So end of May. This season, it seems like all signs, even the Farmer's Almanac says it's an early spring, so you're pretty safe to start planting right now. But
I'm on
with
like
the way 2020 is, the way 2020 came in this year, I just, I mean, I don't even want to go through all the damn catastrophes, everything that's going on. I don't want to fucking have a hurricane come into Michigan for the first time ever or whatever the fuck happened.
yeah,
So
yeah.
So your plan is
Right.
basically to let it to go out there for like the last month of its life to finish off and bulk up.
Yep. What I'm going to do is I have a autoflower right now in a sip container. It's a purple dragon, and I have another sip container with nothing in it, but it's got a bunch of clover and everything else. What I plan on doing is not planting anything in this when this auto cuts out, and then taking those two sip containers out and just letting everything die or whatever. I don't give a fuck. And then start my autos in there. That'll be my space for my autos. And I'll start my 2 in the sip containers right now, and then let them go for like, I don't know, a month or whatever it turns out to be before I put them outside. And then I'll start another 2 indoor. And then when I'm harvesting the outdoor, I'll put 2 more out there. I'm going to try to get at least 2 harvests. That way they might be outdoors for a month each or something like that, or maybe a month and a half each.
And better work out, or I'm gonna be an autoflower hater forever. I promise.
The
It's your best chance.
See,
autoflower is going to be kick ass when they can translate that with hemp growing, and they can do acreage like that with autoflowering high CBD strains that they can
Oh yeah,
2 harvests a year. Like
couple crops a year, dude. That'd be sweet. Yeah, I kind of had.
I
I just got low expectations, so I can't really be disappointed. So whatever happens, whatever. It's just an experiment for me, so it's a fun thing. So if I fucking get 2 ounces, I'll be fucking happy with 2 ounces of free weed that I didn't have to do anything. I don't plan on really fertilizing it or doing anything with it. Just make sure it's got some water on it. That's all I'm gonna
Dude,
do.
I don't have the privacy to grow mendo dope trees. You know what I mean? Like I have to keep my plants away from my neighbor's sightline, you know, for the most part. If they can see my plants with the unaided eye, you know, I'm not supposed to be growing them. So if I grew mendo dope trees and they can see over top of a 6-foot fence, I shouldn't be growing them. So I
Yeah, I'm the
try
same
to
way.
I don't care what I grow as long as I can get some little nice cute little ornamental things I might be able to catch a edible or a buzz off at the end of the season. That's what I like. It's my personal stash. Outdoors, sometimes I make seeds or whatever.
take flowers to them. It's just
Yeah, dude, it's the best. Bouquet weed, you know, it's good. It's got bird shit on it and stuff like that. And outdoors is so experimental for me. Outdoors is incredibly experimental. I just like being around the plants. I like kicking it with the plants, burning one with the plants, taking my dog, letting him eat the plants, you know, just that type of stuff. Outdoors is just such a magical time. You know, it is weird too, like our weather. And I got a couple volunteers out there now that are springtailing up. You know, they got their first sets of leaves. They almost got their second set of leaves. They look like they've been up for at least maybe 4 or 5 days now. We're gonna have a little cold snap, so I'll let you know how they do after the cold snap. Maybe they'll still be alive. But, you know, I'm the type of person I like to question everything. But if we get like 4 feet of snow, I'm gonna really start questioning some shit because that'd be some crazy shit. I'm really hoping we don't get that kind of cold snap. But I think that we are definitely gonna have ourselves a nice early season. Autoflowers, we can get them out there early. Regular cannabis, unless you're gonna go out there and candlelight your plants, like it's pointless to get plants out anytime before June. So autoflowers for sure though.
well, Bad Bunny was talking about that in chat a little bit too, kind of wondering, you know, he had a size of his hoop house, and I'll give a shout out to him because I love Bad Bunny, but but he, you know, and he was talking, well, how big is the plant going to get, you know, and he was kind of asking, and that was just it. Well, you don't know, you know, like if, you know, you can limit the plant size by when you germinate it, you know, like how old is it? Like, you know, how quick did you transplant it into a bigger pot? You know, it's like you can kind of keep them smaller, but I don't know, to a certain extent, if you started it already and it's, you know, a good teenager right now, it's probably got
It's gonna be huge. It's
a good
Mendo dope
plant.
trees.
A good tip when you're building those, like especially if you have a homemade one, is to plant it around maybe to have extra material when you go down. That way, if you have to add more support to raise it up for a Mendodope tree, it's really, really easy. So I don't necessarily like to concrete anything or set anything, at least in the beginning, because I might need to raise it up and make it bigger.
Plus, age does matter. I've tried in the past to take like a mother plant and put it outside for my outdoor, thinking, oh, this thing's going to be a fucking beast. You know, look how big it is. And the plant that I just started, like I normally do in like February, March, or whatever it was, that plant got just as big. It was like, and then the mother plant, you know, when they get older and they get the woody stems, you know, it just seems like it kind of slowed down for a while before it really took off. So it's not always better to start super early. You can go too early.
I would say for the average backyard subdivision gardener that has a small backyard, neighbors with a 2-story window that can very easily see down in your backyard, and you want to keep something discreet, you can take yourself a teenage plant that's 3 to 4 weeks old in a 1 to 2 gallon pot and transplant it sometime in July outside. And you're going to finish in September with a plant that's 4 feet tall and 4 feet wide, and you're going to get yourself a big plant, even if you put it out there in July, because even if it immediately starts to flower, which it's not going to, but even if it's not going to start flowering until like the end of July, you're going to get 4 solid weeks of sunshine growth before you really start flowering. You're going to get a tree, and then if it starts flowering, it could double in size again. So that's why I say if you're dealing with like a 6-foot fence, good luck keeping it below 6 feet if you put it out there, you know, as a large plant.
Yeah, that's why I'm going auto flower, not photo period.
Right.
Because
Yep.
my buddy did the same thing you're talking about. I think it was last year. He put one out. It was a clone in July, and it finished out being taller than me. And I'm 6'2".
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I mean,
dude,
it was a
clones in
big ass
July,
plant.
man. Right. Right. Or just be very, very like do a lot of topping, man. Learn to top frequent and often, daily almost. You know, anytime there's an
We actually scrogged
outline,
ours.
top it.
We double scrogged ours out. We put those metal fence posts down and just hung a scrog net around the fence post, and it worked great. Scrogged it right out.
You have to know your plan if you're doing the topping. Like you don't want to be topping at the end of July, and you're like you don't want to top when your plant's trying to flower. That's a bad issue. I've learned that one. If you start seeing your plant sucking, stop topping. But scrog it. Scrog is a great one. Throw a cattle screen right on top. Crush it with a cattle screen. It'll be resilient. You'd be surprised.
Say it's been a hell of a night here. We're like getting in eagle territory with a 4-hour podcast almost. I think we're at like 3
Well,
and a half right.
we're beyond curing. Now we're getting into the outdoor episode. We're spoiling the entire
Yeah,
outdoor
yeah.
episode on a ramble. So I guess we should chill out.
Yeah, I think
I
it's
got a
probably
water tonight. I had a long ass day today too, so yeah, I'm gonna have to skedaddle soon.
I gotta water
we
my
put in
mouth.
we put in the work
Lord.
tonight. It's past midnight. So why don't we go ahead and go around and do our sign-offs and shout-outs. Just do it in order, Spartan Grown.
Spartan Grown, you can catch me on Instagram or on YouTube with Michigan Bros Grow Show or Cheap Home Grow Podcast or the GML Show on Fridays. And I don't think I missed anybody, but who knows? I'm sorry. Eagle Gardens. Shout out to my buddy Eagle Gardens, man. I enjoyed my time out there on his show. It's another late night one, but for these days off, I might sneak in there too again. Who knows? Maybe catch me at Eagle's place. But shout out to all you guys, man. This was it's just fucking awesome. Even though we got, you know, in these times where we're supposed to social distance, at least I've got this. Keeps me sane. So thanks for hanging with this old guy.
We're gonna have to all just jump in there and crash show one night because like he's probably live right now. And, you know, we end our recording around when he goes live. If we want to stay up later, we all just jump in there. We got the numbers and surprise him. It'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But Smiley, any shout outs?
Yeah, man. I'm Smileys_garden on Instagram. If you guys want, you can reach out to me there. But yeah, as far as shit, I'm drawing a blank on my shout outs, but it's been fun, man. A little tired as well, I guess. Sorry.
And my fellow Gray Jedi, Red Setter Farms.
Man, Frugal Force, cannabis community, everybody cheers. I'm so glad everybody hung out with us tonight on a nice long sesh, and even through some of these long-winded rambles that I put you all through. Man, cheers to everybody. My best friend opened up his new dispensary in Hazel Park, so if you're out there, check out New Standard. They're doing delivery curbside medical right now. They will be recreational soon, and I'm almost positive you might be able to find some Mint and Canico over there. I'm pretty sure they've been doing some business with you guys over there, Spartan. So check them out. Ask them first, see what's in stock, of course, but you might be able to catch that there. I also want to say I'm really excited to catch all this on the Frugal Force. And I also got an awesome opportunity to sit down, chat with Eagle for a long session the other night. So check out Eagle's channel. I'm probably going to jump over there after this myself and say what's up and chat to everybody. So while you guys are seeing this on Saturday, it's tonight. We recorded on Wednesday, and I did my first live on Instagram. You can find me at Red Setter Farms. So I'm probably going to start doing a few more live updates now that the weather's nice from the outdoor garden, and start doing some follow-alongs in the no-till and sunshine. So peace out, everybody. Rock and roll. Love you all. And also Michigan Bro Show community. Can't forget about you guys too. Sorry. I always got to come back and say something.
Yeah, we can't ever forget the Michigan Bro Girls community, because I mean that's what we're all about. We'd be nothing solo. It's all about the team effort.
Catch us there Sunday nights live.
Don't miss it. It's always going. I was just complimenting earlier on how like Sequence and I think Skillbo have never missed an episode. Have you ever missed any? Have you, Spartan or Red?
I don't think I have.
I missed one when I was hunting, and I've been late to a few, and I think I was there in spirit for another one while I was getting bad signal and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, shout out to you guys. I'm the producer, and I probably missed like 5 or 6 now. But
I also didn't get brought on board until like episode 7 or 8. So let's count those first 8 as being misses also. So, but I was there in chat, I believe, for most of those. Definitely there in chat.
yeah, and shout out to all the Girlskis that make it to every single one of them. And got a shout out to Frugal Force users, definitely. My sponsors and the companies that I rep for are East Swap Pots, Mantis Genetics, and Bad Bunny Nutrients. Most of those you can use code ABOLISH to get you a nice 10% discount. And other than that, maybe.
Did Smiley say anything? I don't think Smiley got to say his sign-offs, did he?
Yeah, I drew a blank. I was all stoned on it.
Man, I drew a blank because I thought you did.
I did,
What?
yeah, I did.
Did you?
I was
Okay.
like, I drew a blank on my shout outs, so you handled it. You covered the realm of it.
My
We were
bad.
just saying it earlier, man. I've been so baked tonight. I don't know what the
Me
hell
too.
is going on.
I'm high as
Oh,
fuck.
moon or something, man.
Mm-hmm. But
Air
yeah,
microbes.
and on that note, may the Frugal Force be with you.
Oh. I hate goodbyes.
Lloyd,
Just go ahead.
damn button. Push the goddamn button. You heard what she said.